Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you so much for joining us. I had a big show for you guys today, and it just got a little bit bigger right before we went live. So much for us to discuss. Now, if you guys haven't yet, do me a favor. Please hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the red pill, whatever it is, whatever platform you're on. I would sincerely appreciate it. All right, so we do need to talk about election security. Of course, that's the big news that just broke right before we came in. I have, just before we went live, had a strange glitch occur with Twitter. So it looks like maybe a good portion of what I planned to talk about, it's not going to let me talk about. We'll see. But I also have my good friend Jonathan Otto, who's here in the very first portion of the show. I found a pretty interesting article about methylene blue, and I've talked to you guys about it on many different occasions. So Jonathan's going to be here with me talking about some of his experiences. And then, of course, we're going to get into the news about Eric Swalwell. Eric Swalwell is attempting to suppress information coming out from the FBI, which proves that he is a Chinese honeypotted individual. So do me a favor, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right about now. All right, my friends, welcome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I do need to, first of all, say thank you very much to Trump1, who says, good afternoon, Zach. Thank you for that, my friend. Good afternoon to you as well. And thank you to Filter Dog, who says, happy Taco Tuesday. I saw somebody else talking in the chat about, what is that? Homemade chili dogs. We made homemade coney dogs this week. Homemade coney dogs. All right. So listen, as I was saying in the introduction, you guys, we are going to be opening the show here talking a little bit about methylene blue. And my good friend Jonathan Otto is going to be joining us. But methylene blue first came onto my radar a couple of years ago. There was a study that was done back in 2016. And it showed that among people who took methylene blue, the participants improved their memory tests within just 1 hour after taking a pretty low dose of methylene blue. There have been a ton of other studies that I've looked into in the meantime, and all of them confirm the positive effects and the long-term memory and cognition benefits that people get from it, including people who have Alzheimer's disease. Now, on a chemical level, methylene blue is a master of redox tricks. It's actually a super antioxidant. It helps to supercharge your mitochondria. It does a ton of incredible stuff inside your body. And so joining me today very quickly is my good friend Jonathan Otto, and we're going to be talking about this today. Jono, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Doing great. Nice to connect.
Great to see you as always.
Fantastic.
So I see you've got your PEMF mat out there. I've been laying on that on a daily basis because it's really helping with my back. Every time I screw it up, I've got that. Jono, are you still there? You look like you locked up on us. Oh, no. Oh,
yeah. I think it's good now.
Okay. You're back. You're back. Yeah. It's a little bit stuttery, so I'll try not to talk over you. But like I was just telling the audience,
it should resolve.
Okay. All right. Good. So like I was telling the audience, methylene blue is something that a lot of people are talking about. I've been talking to the audience about it for a pretty long time. My good friend, Jordan at ConsciousStrength.net, he actually has a source of methylene blue. That's where I get my methylene blue from. And I know that we've talked about it before, and there are some pretty incredible benefits that come along with it, especially when you pair it with red light therapy. But it really broke out very recently when I believe it was Mel Gibson appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast, and they had a conversation about it.
Yeah, you're right, Zach. It was a great conversation because it was one where he reluctantly shares the fact that, look, I have 3 friends that have had stage 4 cancer and they're all in remission, and I look, here's what they did, and breaks it down. And he lists it. He lists a couple other things like the antiparasitics, ivermectin, fenbendazole. He says they're drinking hydroxine something. I'll give people a key tip in what that is, because I can't actually even say it on the platform. And in this, and now basically this informal breakdown where he's sharing what's referred to as an anecdote, where you have a case study of somebody turning around a condition. He stepped onto something that is heavily studied in mainstream medicine today. In mainstream, I'm not talking about fringe, even though that's great. There's something to be said for that. But I'm talking about published studies, massive reductions in tumors of all different types. And I'm going to show even what AI is telling you on this subject, and various clinical studies on what is called photodynamic therapy. And photodynamic therapy is arguably the holy grail, not just methylene blue in isolation, but methylene blue with light therapies in combination has been really what a lot of cancer studies are using as the major game changer in the whole process. Here's what Grok says. So this was the 7 out of 10 studies with 99% success. This was in this review, researchers analyzed 10 studies meeting inclusion criteria. They found that photodynamic therapy with methylene blue led to a decrease in tumor size in 7 of the 10 articles, with reductions ranging from 12 to 100%, including 99.9% shrinkage in some colorectal tumor models and 100% elimination in certain nanoparticle enhanced breast cancer models. In the remaining cases, some breast cancer or HeLa models, there was no outright reduction, but often slower tumor growth compared to control. So it's really important to have a conversation around, here's what it can do, here's how good it is for these types of cancers when it's combined with other key factors like diets. I do see people do better on plant-based diets and high raw intake. If you look at some of the groups that have been teaching this, you look at Gerson's therapy, they did well in these categories, but to me, they lacked these other critical tools when used in combination, became much more effective. So here's the high success rates here. The mechanism, so methylene blue is activated by 630 to 660 nanometer red light, and it generates reactive oxygen species. These are highly reactive forms of oxygen, like singlet oxygen, that will target cancer cells and cause apoptosis, programmed cell death. Here was the in vitro, so in a petri dish breast cancer study, which was 98.6% cell death in malignant cells after how long? 24 hours, with far less impact on normal like breast cancer cells, difference up to 80%, colorectal tumor growth 99.9 or 99%. Well, I think they're both quite good. And we're not even talking about stacking therapies on top of that, like pulse electromagnetic field, that is also proven to be very effective on prostate cancer, breast cancer, and other forms. But that kind of opens us up there. Zach, I'm curious on what you think of all this.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's awesome. I mean, like I was telling the audience, I take methylene blue for the cognitive enhancing effects. But I mean, cancer is a realistic thing that you've got to worry about in today's age. I mean, we're essentially just inundated with toxins and with chemicals. And this is one of the most high anxiety things that I hear from people in the chat. I mean, how do you protect yourself from all of this stuff without fully withdrawing yourself from society. And I mean, for most people, that's not a realistic thing that you can do. You can't just move to the middle of the Peruvian Andes or to the mountains in Nicaragua or something like that. And even here in the United States, I mean, a lot of that remote place, I mean, that's going to be like, you know, federal land. But the one thing that you can do is control what you put into your body and the types of things that you do to manage and mitigate all of the nasty things that we have to come into contact with. Obviously, diet is huge, and I'm really glad to see the administration in the last year focusing on that heavily, because it's probably the easiest thing that you can do. But when it comes to ensuring that you have adequate resources at your disposal, I mean, the information is out there, and oftentimes it's just that people don't know where to get it. They don't know how to find it. Certainly, you don't see modern news programs talking about the tremendous success of reducing cancer growths. All too often, I will get emails from people, you know, I've been diagnosed with cancer, my wife is diagnosed with cancer, you know, my brother is diagnosed with cancer. And the first thing, if they're not a viewer of the show, it's really unfortunate. They always say they're going in for chemo next week, or they're going in to get the tumor cut out next week, or they're going in to get radiation next week. And I can't tell you how many times I have heard people say that, and then maybe the cancer's gone because they cut it out for 6, 8, 12 months, and then inevitably it comes back because they don't change anything in their day-to-day routines. And certainly, you know, they're not taking advantage of red light. They're not trying out methylene blue. It makes me feel really confident about the things that I do in my own life, because cancer it's out there. I mean, most people get cancers nowadays, and I don't feel like I have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, because you've got what is, you know, typically done at like the leading holistic cancer centers. You've got a therapy that is being used at these centers. People are paying $30,000, $40,000 for a 2, 3, 4 week stay. And yes, there's other things, there's other equipment. But what happens is, even if you went into remission, which is not common in that period of time, when you go home, then that's when the real war is won. It's about, you know, how do you win that marathon? And what you've done by activating what's photodynamic therapy, by using red light and methylene blue in combination, you're succeeding, right? Because these are malignant forms of cancer when it can become even terminal, and the circulating tumor cells are an issue long before you know that they're an issue. And that's why we need to be having preventative conversations. People need to know about photodynamic therapy, so that it's not just about these, you know, big conversations about massive disease reversal and this was great and this person made it, versus we're all making steps to prevent these things from happening and being proactive. Now, people want to also know about the natural alternatives to methylene blue.
Right.
These are the mechanisms. Yeah, because it's a fabric dye, right? So in that case, I'm personally not doing it every day because of that. And so I'm getting here red light on my back with these panels, and then pulse electron. It's not going to reach me. Neither of them are necessarily going to reach me to the best extent right here. But here we've got the various other photosensitizers that can be used. You've got chlorophyll, curcumin, riboflavin, methylene blue, as we've been talking about. Artemisinin is where ivermectin comes from. It's sweet wormwood, berberine, green tea. They're helping to generate these reactive oxygen species and then working against these forms of cancer. For those that aren't familiar with my work, by the way, this is an example here of some of the work I've published. This is a book called The Cancer Off Switch. And on the back here is and prolific integrative holistic oncologist, 30 years of experience running the Hope for Cancer treatment centers. He describes my work as groundbreaking. He shares that the book is a potential lifesaver, and it's not just recommended for people that are wanting to prevent this or seeking to help a loved one or themselves with cancer. This book isn't just recommended, it's essential, are his words, right? So people should listen to what I'm saying for their sake, not mine, because, you know, research is research, facts are facts. And what we've uncovered is something that just brings a whole lot of hope to people that need it a lot right now. Curcumin works as a photosensitizer. Here's the clinical studies on how it works and how it's activating these reactive oxygen species, targeting cancer cells, causing programmed cell death. And you'll see it in various studies like This one was on a cutaneous B-cell lymphoma case. This was a pilot study with just 3 people in it, but all 3 people were in remission after 1 year. How these therapies see for certain types of cancer. This is a blood cancer. It's a lymphoma. Okay. And here's what it's done for this individual after 2 treatment sessions. That's what it says in the fine print underneath it. A complete response in a patient. Like, this wasn't methylene blue. This was something called methylaminoleuvolinic acid with PDT, with light therapy. And it's an example, right? Once you got a light, then you can experiment. You can then use berberine, methylene blue, try to get a hold of that particular photosensitizer. And the ones that I just mentioned and we've been talking about are the easiest to get a hold of. They're inexpensive, like they cost near nothing. Like a bottle of methylene blue might cost you $30. A red light treatment protocol, it could cost you like literally a few cents per session, under 10 cents a session. Why am I saying that? Because you don't use it once, you use it every day if you want to over the course of 5, 10, 20 years. And then that $1,000 you spend on a red light device, that $2,000 you spent, ends up becoming the cheapest therapy that you're doing, way cheaper than even the $30 bottle of methylene blue, because it's the one that you don't reorder. It's you've got it continually.
Right.
And like, my company's example where we do it on payment plans, and that's an example.
So, and Jonathan, we just, for the benefit of the audience, I mean, you mentioned these all in the same category. You said that they're photosensitizers. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
explain that to the audience. I mean, each one of these has a similar mechanism. It's simply that it's making your body more receptive to the photodynamic therapy.
Correct. And you got it right. Like the name implies it, photosensitizer, photosensitive. How do you make your body even more sensitive to light? Because the sensitivity that you have to light is what makes light effective and able to generate energy in the cells called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It's your body's ability to do this is the critical aspect. And so now, how do you make it extra sensitive to light? And the answer is to use a photosensitizer. Interesting, methylene blue, because it's this interesting textile dye, it makes your cells hypersensitive to light. So it is kind of this weird biohack that happened. It's one of the oldest and safest medications. It's
the first synthetic medication, and it was totally accidental. Like the only reason they realized that it worked is because they were using it as a dye to make blue jeans, and they realized that the people who were on the line where they were making these jeans, they were smarter, they were quicker, they were thinking quicker on their feet, and they were like, maybe there's something else to this. I find that story so fascinating.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I actually was not familiar with that, but you see that both your facts and my facts align with the research I had on that, and thank you for that. And that's why you guys are following Zak, because he knows stuff, right?
Yeah.
He knows stuff. And
now
yes,
Artsy Joan mentioned something. So methylene blue, the only thing that I always caution people on with methylene blue, it is an MAOI inhibitor. Okay, so you cannot take methylene blue if you are taking like psychiatric drugs. You don't want to take it if you're doing like, Wellbutrin or Prozac or something like that. Anything that does count in the category of a drug, no matter how long it's been around, no matter how well tolerated it is, you always want to check for possible interactions with anything else that you might be taking. And that even goes for a lot of supplements. People don't really think about this, but there are certain supplements that you can take that can have a potentiating effect with something else that you're taking, and it can potentially lead to unpleasant side effects. So that is something perhaps I should have led with. But yes, you definitely want to make sure, because serotonin sickness is something that may occur if you take it and it loads your system up too much. But it does increase dopamine as well as a part of the mechanism that it works with. So there is kind of like a happiness component to it. Maybe that's why I have such a sunny disposition.
No, I like that. That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great. Yes. So as I mentioned, it's hypersensitizing your cells to light. When your cells are sensitized to light, they can produce more cellular energy, ATP. And it's really, when you understand it properly, cancer is an energetic issue. It's a voltage related issue. And people are not, like, probably 80, 90% of the audience that's hearing this has not had that explained properly to them. And it was kind of out of my view for a while until it all clicked and everything came together. And so if you notice what Mel Gibson accidentally talked about, which we should play the clip. I texted it to you.
I got it pulled up here. So let me pull it up for the audience, and here we go. I bet you it's going to make me watch a commercial.
Single fatal weakness destroyed.
Yeah.
Let me get past the commercial. All of these non-skippable ads now. Okay. Here we go.
A good story.
Okay.
I have 3 friends. All 3 of them had stage 4 cancer.
Let's see.
All 3 of them don't have cancer right now at all.
Is that
and
working?
they had some serious stuff going on.
So the audience can see it, Jono, but you can't because of the way my system is set up. I didn't have time to do it right.
No, it's all right. Don't worry about that.
What did they take?
Jesus. They took some, what you've heard they've taken.
Ivermectin.
Fenbendazole.
Fenbendazole. Yeah. I'm hearing that a lot.
They drank hydrochloride something or other.
There's studies on that now where people have proven that
people are drinking methylene blue and stuff like that.
Yeah, methylene blue, which was a fabric dye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a textile dye. And now they find out it has profound effects on your mitochondria.
Yep.
Yeah.
This stuff works, man.
There's a lot of stuff that does work, which is very strange because, again, it's profit. When you hear about things that are demonized and that turn out to be effective, you always wonder, well, what is going on here? How is our medical institutions, how have they failed us so that things that do cure you are not promoted because they're not profitable?
All right. And he just said it right there, Jonathan. Things that are not profitable, things that can cure you, are inevitably always covered up by our medical community. And that's really sad. And how sad is it that Mel didn't even feel safe actually saying it on Joe Rogan's podcast, the biggest freaking podcast in the world, but he knows that they were on YouTube. I don't know if I'm not monetized on YouTube, so if they kick me off, then, so be it again. But also, Jep863 wants to know, how is methylene blue with C60 Evo? They're totally fine to take together because they actually both have similar mechanisms of activation. They're both going to supercharge your mitochondria, and they both take care of reactive oxygen species, but there is no counterindication. He also wants to know, what is the best to combat shingles and help heal eyes? We've only got a couple of minutes left, Jono, so I think that we should see if you've got any answers on that in terms of red light therapy with combating shingles. I know we've talked about the potential to heal people's eyes if they have certain types of nearsightedness. I don't know if it works for farsightedness.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All different types, whether it's macular degeneration or other issues in the eyes. There's a couple of really high profile cases I'm working on right now. The eye just heals itself. I mean, everything heals itself. Once people realize this, they will get less siloed into issues, and we just then become more progressive with that. Shingles arguably has a viral component to it. And then if you understand that red light therapy is arguably it is by far one of the best things for viral infections, which has this connection to venoms, which is really interesting to understand that mysterious connection. But then which there's studies on that, those components that interact with it, what's called edema and myotoxicity. So it's really then about using the right wavelengths of light. And this is where you'll see here in this chart, you've got 9 different wavelengths. So these are some of the most proven out of all the wavelengths. Between 600 and 1100, these are the critical wavelengths. See how they're penetrating through the epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous tissue, muscle, bone, interior tissues. All of those become important. Deeper, further is not always better. It depends what it is. And so that's why with near infrared, we're getting to the bone, interior tissues, center of the organs. And that's why you'll see, though, they're interfacing. Like, let's say if you look at lung cancer, breast cancer, stomach cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer, most of these are photodynamic therapy studies. Some of them are just red light in isolation without a photosensitizer. And the different wavelengths of light are activating, and those photosensitizers are systemic, and you're generating more reactive oxygen. You're helping target those tumor abnormal growths. You're energetically fixing these issues. Parasites that Mel mentioned indirectly by mentioning ivermectin and fenbendazole, which are both antiparasitics, are disrupting what's called the mitochondrial stem cell connection. And by disrupting that and draining the energy from cells, it's causing malformations of cells. And your body's continually turning over these cells, turning a stem cell into a normal organ cell, eye cell, blood cell. And you can't make those transitions when you have energetic disruption, low voltage, and that you're correcting that through cellular energy, through the mitochondria, receiving light, generating cellular energy. And so then you see all these categories, whether it's autoimmune conditions, people here with thyroid conditions. Autoimmunity is the precursor for cancer. That's why cancer is also referred to as late stage autoimmunity. Mm-hmm. It happens first. So I could put up literally tens of thousands of different diseases, because there's about 75,000. And you'll find that against all categories, you'll find red light therapy having a mechanism that works and is effective. And so I think that this is so important for people to get their head around, and then work out then the next steps of then implementing these types of therapies from home, so that you can just take your knowledge and what you know, and your loved ones, your elderly parents may not know exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it. My 87-year-old grandma on my wife's side, my abuela, she didn't know why I put that red light over her head, because she kept falling over and splitting her head. And so the immediate thing was to heal the wound. But then now she's got a cognitive function back. Now she moved back into the home that we built for her, because she can move around without falling over. Now she's about to get off of thyroid medications at 87 years old.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly. But she didn't know everything, but you just, at the end of the day, you need to do something. It's not just knowledge, it's about doing it.
Absolutely. And knowledge is very, very important when it comes to this stuff, because saw somebody in the chat say LEDs. I thought LED was bad. If you could go back, Jono, to that, the list of the wavelengths. LEDs, as you may have them in your home, like plugged into your ceiling, it's a completely different thing from what we're talking about in terms of an FDA-approved red light therapy device. It's the wavelengths of the specific type of light that are important. And that's going to be a different wavelength, coming specific nanometer waves, which are going to penetrate at different points in your body. And red light is different than blue light, is different from yellow light, but they all have different functions and perhaps complementary relationships. So not all red light therapy devices are created equally, and not all red lights are the same.
True. And a slight correction that I'll offer. Okay. But you're right on the right subject area. My argument here, and it's very clear from the studies, is it's flicker rate. That's the real issue.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, because what you'll find is that blue is effective, and that's why it's in a lot of the studies. That's why it's used for jaundiced babies. It's mainstream science now, and blue light during the day, blue in a rainbow. Did God get it wrong? And
sure.
No, he did. No, he didn't. Right. So what is it that's going on here? Light emitting diode, LED. That's all it stands for. People that are saying that it's bad probably don't know. They don't know what it means, right? Mm-hmm. And it's neither good nor bad. It's like saying humans are bad. Well, there's good ones and there's bad ones, right? So flicker rate is what determines that. So if I went into your house and turned your lights on and off continually, then you'd freak out and you'd get a headache, and that's what's happening, and it's damaging the body. Whereas if you have constant light with no flicker, which is what you're seeing behind me, and that's why of all the studies, what are these studies on, right? The studies that I've been citing, they're on LEDs. They're on either lasers or LEDs, but then you can't do whole body laser, and you can't do it from home, and it's not even safe you need to be under supervision and that type of thing. So LEDs that have then now taken the stage, and of all the things that I don't like NASA for, that's the one thing that I'm happy that they did, which was research into LED, which it's just delivery of light. It's so simple. You've got 90% of the power going into light, 10% going to heat. And because of that, you have a higher irradiance from an incandescent bulb. It's about 50 times. Right. 50 times the strength of an incandescent bulb in the near infrared and red spectrum. Therefore, an incandescent bulb is okay. And I would say if you've got $10, buy a chicken lamp. It'll work to a degree. And It will cost you more in about 4 or 5 years because the energy consumption is so much higher than LED. But that may have been the access point that you needed in that time, right? So don't not do red light therapy. I literally am telling you that is a solution. It's very similar to what won the Nobel Prize in 1903, like 120 years ago.
Very
right.
Cool.
So, and then you got all these categories of cancer. These are cases of people that have seen these amazing scans and getting called. Account's getting a call from a doctor on a Sunday thinking this is going to be bad news, and then she's wondering, like, I'm looking good. Like, I mean, she clearly looks good. She's like, I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. Could red light be having the same effect on my cancer it has been on the rest of my body? And the answer was yes. That call on a Sunday was, you are cancer free, right? So this is happening time and time again. And whether it's a child with autism, which is a whole nother can of worms, but we're seeing tremendous success. A post-stroke patient, cognitive decline, dementia, depression, anxiety, mood disorder, even schizophrenia. We're seeing clinical studies backing all of these, and I'm seeing continual results on all of these. And I just want people to see here, photodynamic therapy, lung cancer, the most terminal cancer, the most prolific cancer, killing more people than prostate cancer, colon cancer, and breast cancer combined, and 87% response rate for lung cancer and improving patient quality of life. And look at this, it's a new and promising anti-tumor strategy. People need to know these things and be implementing them. Our loved ones need to have them. And that's why you see with me, it's not just me that's using red light, my loved ones, like everyone I care about. Like, you're someone I care about, Zak. That's why you're doing red light.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just got one for my mom too. She got it in the mail and she's very happy with it. So,
I'm so happy about that.
Definitely. All right. So, Jono, we are out of time. I want to make sure everybody has the knowledge of where to go to find more information from this. The link is actually in the description of the video, but you can go directly to myredlight.com. That is Jono's website, and they have a ton of information there. And obviously, they have a couple of deals for you as well. You can get 25% off a single purchase when you use code REDPILL25, but they also have bundles available, which come with not just one product, but a number of products that are complementary to each other and perhaps different use cases. And you can use the code REDPILL30 to get 30% off of those. Anything that I'm missing, Jono?
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You got it right. And like, here's an example of something that's about half the size of the one you're seeing behind me. So it's still going to cover most of my organs. This is just an example, right? Mm-hmm. And my grandma, my abuela, that's what I sent her home with, right? And her thyroid medications cost her like on average $100 a month, or if she got insurance, $50. And so meaning that you see, do the math on that, right? What is going to cost 12 months on that? And you can do payment plans. It's going to cost her in medication anyway. So like, you're either spending money in a smart way or a dumb way, right? Mm-hmm. And if you knew you could prevent or turn around something, then why not use that? Whether it's with an eyesight issue, whether it's with a cognitive decline, the need for medication for mood disorder, try something else. See if you can get off your medications and wean down under doctor supervision, which is what she's doing, even though she did the therapy incorrectly, meaning that she didn't even put it on the front of her thyroid and it still worked. She put it on her back because she's worried about it, guys. But look into the red light, use it. If you've seen the science that backs that, and you can get these localized devices. Like we had a woman, Dee with 9 out of 10 pain score with sciatica, pain free at a 0 pain score, now back to a part-time job as a massage therapist. And so these are the tools that are working, Zak, and they're giving people back their lives. And so you've got a 3-year warranty on the panels and 1 year on these precision devices, 60-day money-back guarantee. So you could try it from home, and you can activate payment plans to do it on monthly payment plans. And what you pay for a single session is what you'd pay for a whole month of treatment for a whole family. So do the math, and it's such a saving. I just want people to have tools that work, Zak, and there's a training there up on the top of the page. And the only other thing I say, like, if you're doing something like this, the same amount of time that's invested of me doing this, I could be in front of a panel. So in 5 years, I might be a little regretful that I didn't, put out that extra $500 or whatever it was, so I could have it over all my organs, because it's going to improve all your organ function. And that's straight up science, whether it's chronic kidney disease, heart, lungs, brain, you're going to improve your organ function. Your organs are dependent on mitochondria. And if you're not feeding them, then they're just getting fed with all the toxicity without any real help or support. That's the work I'm doing in Kenya, by the way. And yeah, it's about everything is about making life better for others, and this is one way I'm able to do the humanitarian work that I love, which is by supplying products that work. And the other thing is we're supported and trusted by the Hope for Cancer Treatment Centers. The same author that shared on the back of that book, they're using it for their patient follow-up program. So it's very hard to get good devices like that at consumer prices, and that's what we're doing. We're making it affordable and accessible to people. So thank you for having me, Zach. And guys, you know where to go. It's myredlight.com, and using the codes with Zach or Red Pill,
yeah,
right?
Red Pill 25 and Red Pill 30. Yeah.
You got it.
Okay.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Oh, thanks for being here, Jono. I'll talk to you soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Look forward to it.
We'll see you,
brother.
Peace. Bye. All right, you guys, thank you so much to Jonathan for being here with us. Let's go ahead and jump right into the rest of the news. Again, if you guys want to get one of these devices yourself, or if you just want more information, no pressure, you just go to myredlight.com. The information is in the description below. Let me also say thank you to Sean Joe for a cookie, a can, a cookie, and a cookie. All right, you guys, let's begin here with a local story. This was actually from a viewer of the program who reached out to me up a little bit north from me in Jacksonville. A couple by the name of Allison and Gary Garrett. Unfortunately, they've lived in Mandarin for the last 38 years. Their home just burnt down in the early morning hours of March 8th. Totally unexpected. They owned their home, and it was not insured. Not only the house was lost, but they also had a bunch of miniature horses that they had raised since birth and basically were part of the family. Now, the horses are gone, but the weird thing is that the horses did not die in the fire. What actually happened was because of the emergency that was happening right there, someone had reached out to her and said, you know, hey, I know somebody who can come and rescue these horses so that they're going to be okay. And you guys will know that they're not going to die in this fire. So they came and they picked them up. The place was called Vicky's Rescue Ranch. Now, Vicky was spoken to by the local news, Action News Jack. And it turns out that, unfortunately, Vicky does not rescue horses. Their whole mission is to rehome horses. And Allison apparently was not aware of that when the neighbor suggested that Vicky's Rescue should come and pick up these horses. So they are telling people, Allison and Gary are saying that they did not agree to have these horses taken from them and then given to somebody else. Of course, Vicky and the rescue place are saying that they were definitely aware of what was happening and there was a verbal agreement. So Allison basically said, you know, it was the middle of the night. My house was burning down. I thought my horses were going to die, and I didn't think I had any other options. So quite literally, Allison and Gary are trying to get their horses back because they see them as family. Now, they do have some people that they were planning to place these horses with, and they would prefer that they went with them because then obviously they can see their horses or they can get them back in the future. Now, they went to the sheriff's department, but of course, this is a civil matter, so the sheriff isn't going to do anything about it. They tried to get a lawyer, and all the lawyers they spoke to said, we don't take cases like this because, of course, it's a civil matter and there's no money involved. Now, Vicky, in a text message, says, it was not a misunderstanding. I made that clear when I loaded the last ones into the trailer that they would be finding new homes. These animals were surrendered to me. I'm done with my name getting slandered. And Vicky says that all of the horses have been rehomed. They are gone. There is nothing that Allison and Gary can do, but they are still attempting to try to get their horses back. And so they've put together, along with their neighbor, a GoFundMe, and they're attempting to raise enough money to try to get something together so that they can get these horses and so that they can have them. Now, they've been living in this house, again, for 38 years. It was a beautiful home. They didn't think anything like this was ever going to happen. Allison has been raising horses since she was a little kid. So this is quite literally one of the things that means the most to her in her life. So the other thing is they're in their 70s, right? I mean, like, they're both 76, if I'm not mistaken, or at least in their mid 70s. And so they're trying to start over. They're both retired. I don't think that they have a lot to go on. And it's really, really unfortunate. So I wanted to share the GoFundMe because it was sent over by a viewer of the program. It just kind of broke my heart seeing what was happening to them. And I also, I'm not going to slander Vicky, but I am going to say that I feel that in the moment like this, where people are dealing with what is probably the most difficult situation they've ever had, I find it a little bit odd that Vicky couldn't be perhaps a little bit more accommodating. It is really, really sad. And yes, I see people saying that's why you buy house insurance. And I, would always have house insurance myself. I'm not exactly certain what was going on. Perhaps they just simply couldn't afford it. Maybe the house was so old that the insurance company wasn't willing to insure it without perhaps, making it, again, too expensive for them. I don't know. I don't have all of the information about this, but it is a tragic story. These people need help. I've shown a couple of stories on the show before where people were very, very generous, and so I thought that I would put this out there because it is just a really tragic situation. So at a minimum, if you guys wouldn't mind, just giving some prayers to the Garretts, and hopefully they get everything sorted and that they're able to get their lives back to some sense of normalcy. All right. Now, this, my friends, is the big news that broke just before we went live. That news is that President Trump is, right about now, he may have done it already, planning to sign an executive order which will crack down on mail-in ballots around the country. Now, this is not the end of the conversation. I've spoken about this on a number of occasions. An executive order works as long as the administration that signs it is in power, because as soon as a new administration comes in, they can go ahead and void that executive order and get rid of the actions that the previous president put into place. It is necessary for a legislative solution like the Save America Act, and frankly, much more than just the Save America Act, to be passed in Congress so that we can ensure that elections going into the future in perpetuity are going to be secure and make people feel that they're not totally fake and gay. So President Trump, in an exclusive to the Daily Caller, was planning to sign an executive order today. That executive order is going to require the Secretary of Homeland Security to create a list of verified U.S. citizens who are eligible to vote in each state with the help of the Social Security Administration. And now the presidential action is also going to require that the U.S. Postal Service only send absentee ballots to people who are on that approved mail-in ballot list. So this will effectively end mass mail-in balloting for every person everywhere. So this is going to fundamentally change the way that you vote if you live in like Oregon or Washington, where right now they have universal mail-in ballots. Ballots are also now going to have specific secure envelopes that will be mandated by this executive order. There will be unique barcodes for tracking of those orders, and it's going to allow you, the voter, to ensure that your ballot arrived in a timely fashion. And I would imagine the knowledge that your vote was actually counted in the way that you intended it to be. Now, states are also going to be provided with this revised list that is created by the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration, and they will be receiving it no less than 60 days before each federal election, and they have to comply with this order, because if they don't comply with this order, then they forfeit any money coming from the federal government for these sorts of actions. It also tells the U.S. Attorney General to prioritize investigating and prosecuting anyone accused of sending ballots to ineligible voters. States that disobey, again, may lose federal funds under this presidential action, not only as it applies to elections, but federal funds going to many states around the country are one of the primary ways that they fund their operations. Election integrity. This is Abigail Jackson, a White House spokesperson. Election integrity has always been a top priority of President Trump, and the American people sent him back to the White House because they overwhelmingly supported his common sense election integrity agenda. The president will do everything in his power to defend the safety and security of American elections and to ensure that only American citizens are voting in them. Congress should also expeditiously pass President Trump's Save America Act to protect elections for generations to come. Now, the action obviously comes in the midst of all of this chaos that we're seeing in the Senate. Their inability or unwillingness, perhaps, is a better turn of phrase, to pass the Save America Act. Now, under that legislation, we would also have a requirement for voter ID, proof of citizenship. States would also be required to clean up their voter rolls, and you would only be able to vote by mail if you have specific approved reasons. Now, you probably remember the other day President Trump posted regarding the unfortunate actions in the Senate. Enough is enough for our Republican senators. There comes a time when you must do what should have been done a long time ago, and something which the lunatic Democrats will do on day one if they ever get the chance. Terminate the filibuster, get our airports and everything else moving again, and also add the complete 5 items from the Save America Act. Go for the gold. That obviously still has not happened. That bill was brought to the Senate floor for debate on March 17th, and they proved to us in that middle of the night, 3 a.m. vote on opening DHS without funding for ICE and Customs and Border Protection that they very easily could have added the Save America Act, but they chose not to. Now, President Trump had previously told the Daily Caller that obviously he's in favor of using the standing filibuster to pass that legislation. We've gone over a number of different possibilities on how this could be done. You could have very easily, using the rules of the Senate, as we talked about yesterday, a limit on the amount of time that people are able to speak, 2 speeches per person, and then you eventually get to the point where you're going to have to vote on it. President Trump, of course, is still promising to veto any other legislation until the Save America Act is passed. As far as I'm aware, he has kept to that. It must be done immediately. Election integrity is the number one issue for a lot of people. I still, every now and then, still see people saying, we don't have anything until they prove what happened in 2020. That is currently taking place. That's the efforts that we see from the DOJ, from the FBI, and from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. But the question is, how do we get these people back? We kind of hinted at it yesterday with Article 2, Section 3, President Trump's ability to call the Senate and the House, or one or the other, back into session, despite the fact that they're on a recess, as a result of this extraordinary situation that we find ourselves in. Apparently, President Trump is considering doing just that. I believe that's exactly what he should do, and we need to see that sooner rather than later. Now, President Trump also said that he would be totally willing to pay for dinner for the various senators. He would have Easter dinner for them if they were forced to come back. And if they do that, great. But get them back. Do not feed them dinner until they actually pass the Save America Act and they successfully do everything on President Trump's agenda. All right. Now, I'm still having issues with Twitter. Apparently, Twitter does not want to work. So let me see if I can do this. Yeah, hold on. Let me try this one more time. So I had this. We've got a little section to watch. Yeah, it's like Twitter is just completely not working. Let me just see if I can get it to open up in another browser. Is it just Safari? It's just freaking Safari. Safari is the problem. Wow. Okay, so I am going to have to get this pulled up in another browser so that you guys can see it, because otherwise it's, here we go. All right, so we're talking about Iran very briefly, and let me switch the view of my screen here so that we can actually get to what I wanted to play for you guys. Okay, and we're going to go to window capture, and we will go to X right here. Okay. So, there's so much conversation about the Straits of Hormuz, but I have to say, what about the gays of Hormuz?
Isn't it a little bit homophobic that we're so focused on the Straits of Hormuz and not the gays of Hormuz?
Yes, I agree. Yes, for sure.
Why do you think they're willing to leave the gays of Hormuz behind?
I think it's just historically, like, you know, gays have always been very discriminated against, which is wrong on so many levels.
Even in war.
Yeah, even in war. It just takes more reform in government, obviously, and then also educating society.
Just feel like if we're gonna go in there, we can't leave the gay people behind.
Right.
I don't think we should go in there at all, but if we're going to, the gays of Hormuz, we could turn it into Fire Island.
For sure.
Isn't it?
Oh my God. These people are so stupid. No cap on God is hilarious. That dude is so funny. Okay. Let me change my screen back over to my display. We'll go through. So, the situation in Iran has developed into a slightly more complicated scenario. As we were discussing the other day, President Trump testing the nations of NATO and seeing if they would be willing to help out. Obviously, we have a compact with these other NATO nations. But as you'll soon find out, a compact is worth nothing if it is not followed. Now, we've had a series of developments over the last couple of days. First of all, Italy has refused to let U.S. bombers land at a Sicilian base. We already had a similar situation happening with Spain. So a group of U.S. bombers was reportedly set to land in Italy, but for some reason, Italy did not grant them the permission, and subsequently, they were forced to fly somewhere else. Now, the Italian government issued a statement saying Italy acts in full compliance with existing international agreements and with the policy guidelines set out by the government to parliament. So now you've got two European nations, both NATO-aligned nations that are allies of the president or of the nation. Now you've got a third U.S. allied NATO nation, this time Poland. Poland was asked to send one of their Patriot missile batteries, Patriot missiles which the U.S. developed, and send it to the Middle East. But the government in Warsaw said no. The defense minister said our Patriot batteries are used to protect Polish skies and NATO's eastern flank. We have no plans to relocate them anywhere. So now you have three NATO-aligned nations, all allies of the United States, essentially rebuking that special relationship that exists in terms of our allegiance and ownership in NATO. So this is pretty much confirmation, as far as I'm concerned, that NATO is dead. NATO is absolutely dead. And as President Trump said the other day, he was simply testing the nations of NATO. And that test has continued even after he told them that he was testing them. And they have essentially flinched once again. So President Trump has said to the European nations, our friends in NATO, and to the Gulf states, you guys are going to have to fix the Straits of Hormuz yourself, or they will forever be known as the gays of Hormuz. So earlier today, he suggested that we will ultimately withdraw troops from the Middle East, and that's going to force Europe, Asia, and these Gulf nations who, frankly, have existed with the safety and security they enjoy because of the presence and protection of the United States of America. So you guys are now going to have to deal with the blockade from Iran in the Straits of Hormuz because nobody wants to step in and help. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily the case for the Gulf nations. Certainly, they have requested that the U.S. stay there. But it's interesting because there's been all of this conversation about a ground invasion, which I don't believe is going to happen. But apparently Israel piped up and they said that if there is a ground invasion, we're just going to let the U.S. handle it. Man, I don't know that that's such a good look for them, to be perfectly honest, because there is nothing more that they would like than for the United States to do a ground invasion in Iran. But they're not going to help out. They're not going to help out. And like this is supposedly their biggest enemy in the region. Again, just another reason why we are not going to do a ground invasion. So President Trump says the U.S. won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Build up some delayed courage, go to the straight, and just take it. He also added, Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your oil. Now, the additional statement he made earlier today would essentially lay out his plan for the United States to withdraw, Europe and the Gulf states to remain there in a position of authority because they're the ones who are dependent on the oil flowing through the strait. The United States doesn't use oil that goes through here. Like, this was a freebie, guys. We helped you, and if you don't want to help us, then why in the hell should we continue? He said all those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the straight, and just take it. You have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. President Trump also went on to say that France was also being very unhelpful because they're a fourth NATO-aligned European nation that has also refused to allow U.S. fighters to land in the country. The country of France won't let planes headed to Israel, loaded up with military supplies, fly over French territory. France has been very unhelpful with respect to the butcher of Iran, who has been successfully eliminated. The USA will remember President DJT. Meanwhile, President Trump said that talks with Iran continue. They are agreeing with us on his 15-point plan and that some oil is being allowed to flow through the strait. But guess what? They're giving it to us. The oil that's going through is oil that we're taking. We're not letting it go to Europe, but it's leveling threats. Some aspect of the remaining government is leveling threats. And so President Trump himself is saying that if this deal falls through, we're just going to take everybody out. He said it's really a new regime. It's a group of people we've never dealt with before, but they're acting very reasonable. It truly is a regime change. Now, President Trump also said that the war may escalate if necessary. We may target Iran's energy and water infrastructure if, for any reason, a deal is not shortly reached. An emissary of the Iranian government also made a public statement and said, we're done, guys. We want peace. So, we just need some guarantees, and it looks like the United States is working on that right now. But as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as Trump is concerned, NATO is no more. It was also stated that we should probably just pull all of our people out of the bases and also stop funding them. And once again, I have another freaking tweet that will not open. So give me a second and I'll open it up. This is going to be Pete Hegseth also commenting on much the same. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to do this. We're going to go like this. This will probably be easier. Then I won't have to change anything on my display.
And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that will be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare. A lot has been shown to the world about what our allies would be willing to do for the United States of America when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world. These are missiles that don't even range the United States of America. They range allies and others, and yet when we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them. He's simply pointing that out, and ultimately it'll be his decision of what that looks like after this is complete.
All right. So, as we've shown, the UN is essentially dead. President Trump's created the Board of Peace. Now NATO is essentially dead, and we are no longer going to have to worry about this in the meantime. All right. Now, continuing, let me actually drop that down. Drop that down. And okay, maybe, well, this isn't a video, so it should work. All right, so this was what I was talking about earlier. President Trump currently considering forcing an end to the 2-week vacation that the Congress is on, calling them back to D.C., getting DHS funded, but more importantly, getting the Save America Act funded. So we can move on from that. Now, we can also talk about Eric Swalwell and his untimely predicament when it comes to the revelation of his honeypot relationship with Miss Fang Fang. Now, Eric did not take kindly to the idea of Kash Patel and FBI rank and file talking about the release of this investigation from several years ago. I anticipate we're going to learn that Eric Swalwell is most certainly compromised. Eric Swalwell definitely had a sexual relationship with a Chinese honeypot, and that perhaps there is a lot of information that Eric Swalwell may have given over, whether it's simply just Eric tipping off Fang Fang to the fact that the CIA and the FBI were coming for her, or perhaps he allowed her to take classified information or a very minimum sensitive information that he was able to glean from his position in the House of Representatives. But the one thing I can tell you is that you don't sue to block the release of information if there's nothing to see. The other thing that's interesting is I'm not exactly certain how Eric Swalwell could attempt to block the FBI from releasing an investigation that they themselves did. I don't think there is a precedent for this. But Eric Swalwell has got to try. Thank you to Artsy Joan, who says, thank you for another great show, Zach. God bless. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate you. Attorneys for Representative Eric Swalwell demanded in a letter to FBI Director Kash Patel that the Bureau refrain from releasing a decade-old investigative file involving the congressman's purported ties to a suspected Chinese intelligence operative. His attorneys, of course, wrote the letter, and they said that there's no justification for releasing the files, especially since the congressman had assisted the FBI in its investigation. Well, Eric Swalwell can assist the FBI in their investigation by answering questions, but that doesn't mean there isn't findings from that investigation which seem to indicate that Eric Swalwell could have potentially been compromised. I mean, think about everything that they've said about President Trump over the years. Think about Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff working on the committee and the various impeachments and all of the insinuations they made about President Trump being compromised by Russia. Once again, it was always a case of projection. It was always Eric Swalwell who was compromised by a foreign nation, allegedly, in my opinion. Now, he continues by saying the congressman has never been accused of wrongdoing in that matter. Well, it was a sympathetic government that was investigating Eric Swalwell before. Now, it's a different type of government that certainly might actually go so far as to accuse him of wrongdoing. And certainly, I think the people deserve to know what the findings of the FBI were. And if they chose not to pursue charges, what were the reasons for not pursuing charges? I think the answer to that is that whatever Eric Swalwell did could have very easily been a career-ending scandal for anybody else. But I think the FBI and the CIA were seeking to control Eric Swalwell and keep him under the thumb of the blackmail that they were able to dig up on him. But continuing, the matter, okay, the congressman has never been accused of wrongdoing in that matter, and your attempt to release the file is a transparent attempt to smear him and undermine his campaign for California governor. Your actions threaten to expose you, others at the FBI, and the FBI itself to significant legal liability. As far as I'm aware, the FBI did an investigation. Releasing that investigation, if there is nothing wrong, it would absolve Eric Swalwell. If there is something wrong, well, then obviously it would expose Eric Swalwell, and it may lead to legal ramifications for him. I don't think that he's going to be able to successfully stop the FBI from putting this information out. Now, this report on Eric Swalwell and his relations with Fang Fang is currently classified. So that means that there will need to be a declassification process. And what do we know about Fang Fang? We know that she was a bundler. She brought in a whole bunch of donations for his political campaign, not just for Eric Swalwell, but also for other Democrat candidates. I would love to see who those people were or those organizations were that Fang Fang was able to bundle that money for, considering that she's being accused of being a Chinese spy or at the very least a Chinese citizen who had an ultimate allegiance to the People's Republic of China. I think it's entirely possible that some of the money that could have come into Eric Swalwell and these other Democrats' campaigns could have been illegal. Now, a source for Capitol Hill, speaking to the Federalist, said, yes, we know 100% Eric Swalwell had a sexual relationship with Fang Fang. And what's also convinced me fully that the CIA and the FBI sought to compromise Eric Swalwell is, like, despite the fact he was sleeping with a Chinese citizen, Chinese spy allegedly, having sexual relations with her, they allowed him to remain on the House Intelligence Committee. Nancy Pelosi did that. She had the power to do that at that time. And in doing so, in working on that committee, he had access to some of the nation's most highly classified and sensitive information. This is not the person that you want sitting on the Intelligence Committee. Even if Eric Swalwell hadn't been sleeping with a Chinese woman, this is still not the person that you want sitting on that Intelligence Committee. And, of course, we also had the presence of the Biden administration. They, too, were clearly compromised by some aspect of the People's Republic of China. The report in question, which intelligence and national security sources familiar with its contents, speaking on a condition of anonymity, contains details of the nature of that relationship, the sexual relationship with Fang Fang, including certain sexual acts they allegedly engaged in together. Is there anyone here who doesn't think Eric Swalwell is the kind of guy who likes to get pegged? That might be what he is so concerned about coming out. Sources familiar with that report, however, will not provide any specific details of what the nature of those sexual acts were. What if we find out that Eric Swalwell is like a fecal philiac, or he likes golden showers? Everything that they tried to say Donald Trump was doing with Russian prostitutes was actually Eric Swalwell doing them with a Chinese spy. Now, for those who have seen the details of that Swalwell case, it was so shocking that Pelosi and Adam Schiff would willingly keep him on the Intelligence Committee. Again, not just for naked partisan reasons, but because it meant that Eric Swalwell was now compromised by both Schiff and Pelosi. It meant that whatever they needed from Eric Swalwell, oh, we need you to vote yes on this. We need you to give up money for your district. We need you to publicly make comments that are disparaging about a person. We need you to do this or that. It doesn't matter. Eric Swalwell would directly be under the control of both of them, in addition to the FBI and the CIA. Now, we would still like to know, regardless of whether or not Eric Swalwell did anything illegal, exactly what was found in that investigation. We'd like to know exactly what the deal was to keep Eric Swalwell on the Intelligence Committee. We'd like to know what Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff maybe thought about this at the time. Were they questioned about Eric Swalwell? Did they have any concerns that they were willing to look past because they knew that if they controlled Eric Swalwell, it didn't matter how compromised he was? Everybody in Washington is compromised. Now, for those who have seen the details of this classified file, they said it was shocking that Pelosi and Schiff were so willing to keep him on that committee. And I'm looking at a very, very short time in the future where this information is going to be out. And the reason I say that is because apparently Kash Patel has a crack team of FBI investigators who are working around the clock to declassify and, if necessary, redact anything from this report so that it can be quickly released to the American public. I feel that the release of this information is imminent. Let's take a listen.
FBI is getting ready to release old case files that could taint the campaign of one of the leading candidates for California governor.
Yeah, this case involves a decades-old investigation into a suspected Chinese spy ring with ties to Congressman Eric Swalwell.
And this is the other interesting aspect that I want to know. Fang Fang certainly wasn't operating in a vacuum. It wasn't like Eric Swalwell and these other Democrat politicians were the only people that she was interacting with. Fang Fang undoubtedly had a network of other Chinese individuals that she must have been maintaining communications with. Certainly, there would have been a group of people that she was familiar with and that she would have introduced Eric Swalwell to. What does that network look like? Who else did Eric Swalwell get access to? Who gained access to him?
ABC 7 Eyewitness News political reporter Monica Madden is here now to explain why some people are questioning the timing of this release.
Yes, Kristen and Larry, keep in mind that Congressman Eric Swalwell is a longtime foe of President Donald Trump. So Swalwell says this is why he believes.
Aliases, many honeypots working in D.C. without a doubt. I almost believe that there are no good-looking women in D.C. that are not honeypots. If I was a politician, the last thing that I would do would be dating or going out or putting a profile on Tinder or something like that. You simply never know who you're going to run into. These people, all of them are compromised.
That the case is resurfacing now with his candidacy for California governor front and center. Congressman Eric Swalwell slamming the Trump administration Monday amid reports the FBI is resurfacing a closed counterintelligence probe into him.
We are here today because of absolute nonsense.
The records relate to a decade-old investigation into a suspected Chinese spy who previously volunteered for Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign. Swalwell was cleared of wrongdoing, and House Republicans closed an ethics probe in 2023.
This case is closed, but this effort to weaponize the FBI against the president's political enemy at a time that we are at war shows a distraction.
Swalwell did not.
Texas Tanya asks, did Fang Fang die in a plane crash? It was a different person named Fang Fang. Different age, different birth date, different career. There was a Fang Fang that died in a plane crash, but you can rest assured I verified that they are two different people.
Not directly mentioned the allegations to reporters in San Francisco on Monday, but stressed the political implications.
Trump and Patel are trying to interfere in the California election. That's why they're targeting me. I'm the only name in the race that they know, the only one that they're threatened by.
House Judiciary Democrats coming to his defense, with ranking member Jamie Raskin writing, quote, "This is plain weaponization of the FBI for partisan political purposes."
The irony is that this will probably help him more than hurt him.
It's not going to help him. Like I said yesterday, Eric Swalwell is polling at about 5%. The top two vote getters in the primary are both Republicans. Sheriff Chad Bianco, who I'm not a huge fan of, but I do like what he just did with the ballots in Riverside. And then Steve Hilton, who I like marginally better. Steve Hilton is a naturalized American citizen. He was a commentator on Fox News. He's originally from Britain or the UK. But those two appear to be who is actually going to be in the race come November.
With the voters that matter in the upcoming primary.
A vocal Trump critic, Swalwell is a leading candidate in the California Democratic primary for governor, which ABC 7 News insider Phil Matier says might be advantageous.
For Eric Swalwell, having a Trump attack like this is actually bona fide, that he is a legitimate warrior, that he is really battling, that the Trump administration fears him. It's a one-upsmanship, and that's why he's touting the fact, rather than getting into the details of what might be in the investigation, but saying that the investigation is in fact the story itself.
Now, it might be a benefit to him if Eric Swalwell was one of only a handful of Democrats in the race for governor in this primary. But there are so many Democrats, so many narcissistic egomaniacs who believe they should be governor. They are all willing to split the votes between them. The wonderful thing is because you've only got Hilton and Bianco running as Republicans, they're going to get more votes than anybody else because all Republicans are essentially going to split between the two of them.
It's not the first time the Trump administration has gone after the congressman who led Trump's first impeachment. And Matier says it likely won't be the last.
We're going to be entering that second part of the race where we've done the niceties, we've said our policy papers. Now it's time to get personal, and that usually means mudslinging.
And sources are telling ABC News that the agents have been working this weekend through the potential release, but there's been no timeline on when these documents might be.
So let's take a look at, let's see, California gubernatorial candidates polling. All right. So as of 6 days ago, as far as I'm aware, nobody has bowed out. Everybody is remaining in. I saw some polling the other day. Here we go. Here it says Swalwell takes the lead in governor. This was in March. So, all right. So Swalwell saying here in March that he's polling at 17%. This is from older polling than what I saw the other day. But I can think of nothing more fitting for Eric Swalwell than for him to have charges brought against him as he's running for governor. Oh, and of course, I can't see this because I'm not going to pay for the New York Times. But yeah, this isn't mudslinging. This is realistically something that the citizens of California should be aware of if they're going to go in and make a decision on something as big as this. Okay, so we have a March 18th poll. March 18th poll from UC Berkeley. This is only individual candidates. Okay. No, well, I'm not going to worry about that then. Okay. I will, however, have to open up a new window again to pull up this story right here, which is... this is now bringing us down to Florida. From a den of sin and iniquity in California, we're going to come down to what I believe is an imperfect model here in Florida. Now, Governor DeSantis and the state legislature just successfully passed and he signed into law a new package of laws. But the one we're going to talk about is a law that hits on something that many of you have suggested in the chat before. Essentially, it bans judges from releasing serious criminals back into the community while they await sentencing. We've seen time and time again what happens with this. Now, it's called Missy's Law, and it's named after a 5-year-old girl who was killed by a criminal as he was awaiting sentencing. And this was down here in Florida. The judge had released him. I'm just going to play the clip of Ron DeSantis telling the story. It's tragic, and it was totally avoidable, never should have happened.
And so Missy's Law's house.
And this clip is in mono. I am unable to make it stereo. So if you're not hearing the audio, that means one of your stereo channels is out. I'm getting it in the left channel.
Bill 445. What it does, and this shouldn't even be an issue. So you have somebody that's convicted of a crime, a serious crime.
Cordy says, you're saying his name wrong, Zach. It's Swallowswell. You're right. You're right. It's all Swallowswell, Fartswell, either one.
A lot of times the judge will remand them to custody, then they do a sentencing, and then the judge administers the sentence. But you don't release the convict just because you haven't done sentencing yet. Now, there's some court systems, they sentence you immediately after conviction. It's not how it's done. I know in the military, that's what you do. That's not necessarily how it's done in civil courts throughout the United States. So if you have somebody convicted of a serious crime, revoke their bail, send them to jail, knowing that they're going to get a sentence of imprisonment, probably very lengthy anyways. And I think most judges in Florida get that and have done it, but not all of them. So the situation with Missy, she's got this stepfather, big-time scumbag. He was convicted. First of all, he was abusing Missy. She's like 5 years old, doing all that. Really, really bad what was going on in the home.
Yeah, the stepfather was abusing Missy in the most terrible way that you could possibly imagine. This girl should have been protected by the system.
But then he gets convicted of trying to meet a 15-year-old for sex. And so he gets brought up on charges. He's out on bail. Then he gets convicted. And so this judge, what's the judge's name? Judge Tiffany Baker up in Leon County. He was
I'll show you Tiffany Baker in just a moment.
Convicted of attempting against a minor. That's a felony. That's a serious offense. And the prosecutors went to her. They said, Judge, this is a dangerous individual. You need to revoke the bail. Please revoke the bail. And she refused to do that. She put him out on bail pending sentence. And what happened in between that decision and the time he was sentenced? He murdered Missy. Totally preventable. A miscarriage of justice. A dereliction of judicial duty. So what this bill does is it makes sure that these types of sexual offenses mean that a judge must remand the convicted defendant to custody.
So now this new law, Missy's law, gives these radical activist judges no choice. They must place these people in jail. If you allow them to get out, they're going to go for a free-for-all. They're going to attempt to do as much damage as they possibly can. And young Missy should be alive today. Now, what's even more than that, DeSantis says the legislature is not going far enough. The legislature has the power to actually impeach and hold these judges accountable. And that's what they need to do.
I appreciate the legislature for passing this. But I will just say to my friends in the Florida House of Representatives, I don't think what you've done is enough. You have the power and you have sufficient numbers in your chamber to impeach this judge, Tiffany Baker. Until you start holding these judges accountable, they are going to continue to find ways to benefit the criminal element. This was an outrage. This was such an easy call to make sure that this guy was put behind bars. And this judge refused to do it, knowing the risks, and the result has obviously been a tragedy. So Florida Constitution vests the House of Representatives with the ability to bring an impeachment against a circuit judge with 2/3 majority. You know, last time I checked, we've got way more than 2/3 of Republicans. Honestly, I think some Democrats would vote to impeach, given what happened in this case.
This is an absolute must. It needs to happen because, just as he said, these judges are not going to play fair unless they are held accountable. There is no reason that little girl should be dead. This judge should be in prison. I think that anybody who loses their life or who is further victimized at the hands of a criminal that never should have been out on the streets, was let out because of a leftist activist judge like this, that judge should be held criminally liable. If it was a person on the street who did some overt action that led to the death of another person, even if they didn't pull the trigger, you could still be charged with murder. You could, if you drove someone to a convenience store and that person went into the convenience store and shot the clerk and robbed them, even though you didn't intend to do that, you didn't participate in the murder, your actions led to that murderer having the ability to kill that person and take their life. Exact same standard should be given to judges. I'm so sick of hearing about stories like this. All right, now, in this story, we have another case of federal corruption. An ex-NYPD sergeant was arrested in New York earlier today, also said to involve a member of the city council, her politically connected sister, and the husband of this Brooklyn Democrat Party boss, together funneled off money that was supposed to be used for migrant shelters. So funny when you think about how much money went through New York City, and plenty of it went to feed, house, clothe, and provide benefits for these illegal aliens. But I think that we'll probably be shocked when we learn just how much of it also went into the pockets of crooked politicians. Eduardo St. Fort was busted in Massachusetts on a warrant from a federal court in Brooklyn. Mr. St. Fort retired from the police department in 2023. He was indicted on bribery and conspiracy charges. The former cop's indictment is linked directly to a federal investigation into Councilwoman Farrah Lewis and her sister Debbie Lewis. Debbie Lewis is an aide to New York State Governor Kathy Hochul. Now, this case burst into view just yesterday evening when it was reported that search warrants were filed and served in this case. And it's all about migrant shelter contracts. They were awarded during then-Mayor Eric Adams' administration as they were grappling with the flood of asylum seekers flowing into the city starting in 2022. The sisters, as well as Edu Hermelin, who is the sister of the state assembly member and chair of the Brooklyn Democrat Party, Rodnice Bishonet Hermelin, are said to be under scrutiny for potentially taking kickbacks on behalf of BH Rags Home Care Incorporated. It's a Brooklyn-based home service provider turned migrant shelter provider. They weren't stealing enough money as a home medical service. They saw an opening to go for the migrant money as well, and they did it. They shot their wad, and they blew it. Now, BHARD, excuse me, I don't know if it's BHARG or BHRAG because it's listed both ways. We'll call it BH Rags. How's that? They secured more than a dozen contracts for homeless services since 2022. That total was worth more than $200 million. Now, Mr. St. Fort and his company, Fort NYC Security, also secured 6 contracts from the city to be a security subvendor to BH Rags and the Bronx Family Network Incorporated. Together, they received just over $7 million in public funds. Now, 5 of those contracts for Mr. St. Fort's company included all of his deals with BH Rags, and they were awarded as no bids, which means that he just showed up, handed them the paper, and they gave him a check. 4 of those contracts were awarded before he was even granted a security guard license. So he wasn't somebody who should have even been able to get those contracts in the future. 3 of those contracts were signed off by the city's comptroller office on February 27th of 2023, with another being issued by City Hall on June 6th of 2023. Those contracts together were more than $2.1 million. Now, of course, the defendants in this case are not commenting. They don't have anything to say about it. Mr. St. Fort was scheduled for an initial appearance in Brooklyn Federal Court today at 3 p.m. Eastern. And I'm sorry, he is actually appearing first in Massachusetts because that's where he was arrested, and then he will be extradited to Brooklyn for the rest of it. Nothing, any word on the others involved in this federal corruption case having been arraigned yet or what their charges might be, but I would imagine they're all going to be in the same category. But just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that because somebody said it the other day, no one is being arrested for committing acts of fraud. And every single day I bring you new stories about people being arrested for acts of fraud. So continue to watch Red Pill News and you will learn about these things. Guess what? We have another arrest in a corruption probe, this time a former San Francisco human rights commissioner and the director of a nonprofit. Take a look at this. Former San Francisco Human Rights Commissioner Cheryl Davis and former executive director James Spignola were both arrested and charged yesterday on allegations of financial conflict of interest, once again with city contracts, also a series of ethical violations. Now, Ms. Davis was charged with 17 felonies and 2 misdemeanors in connection with a financial conflict of interest, again, regarding city contracts worth more than $8.5 million. This is being prosecuted in San Francisco, and District Attorney Brooke Jenkins is handling the case. DA Jenkins said that funds from Davis's department were improperly spent. She accepted gifts, and she failed to disclose those gifts as is required by law. Spingola, for his part, was charged with 4 counts of aiding and abetting Davis's conflict of interest in the receipt of 4 government contracts. Davis became the director of the San Francisco Human Rights Commission all the way back in 2016. And before that, she was the executive director for another nonprofit, the Collective Impact. Davis and Spingola worked together at Collective Impact, where Spingola started working in 2005 before becoming the executive director once Davis left in 2019. Here is a timeline of the allegations. Beginning in July of 2021, Davis and Spingola signed a contract on behalf of HRC and Collective Impact, awarding Collective Impact $1.275 million and using Dreamkeeper money. Dreamkeeper was an initiative by then Mayor London Breed, reinvested $120 million into Black communities only, Jenkins said. It awarded grants to community applicants. In December of 2021, Davis signed another HRC contract with Collective Impact, acting as a fiscal sponsor for another nonprofit. Spingola also signed that same contract. And then over the next couple of years, this contract was increased to nearly $1 million. It's relevant because not only we have this conflict of interest because of their relationships, but also because as a fiscal sponsor for that nonprofit Collective Impact, on a 12.5% fee for the providing of that contract, that totaled more than $100,000 for her, D.A. Jenkins said. And then in 2022, HRC awarded Collective Impact another contract for $250,000, this time for technical assistance. And again, both were signed by Davis and Spingola. Now, again, in 2021, Collective Impact received funds from the Dreamkeeper Initiative through grants for DCYF, which is the San Francisco Department of Children, Youth, and Families. That's another department involved in the distribution of these Dreamkeeper funds. D.A. Jenkins said DCYF did not make its own funding choices, but was advised by Davis herself on how to distribute these funds without any impact from the staff there at DCYF. Davis told DCYF, you're going to give $1.5 million of the $3.1 million that was awarded from Dreamkeeper to Collective Impact, an organization that she had a relationship with. Now, D.A. Jenkins also added that the personal finances of Davis and Spingola were intertwined inappropriately. She said they have lived together since 2015. They have multiple shared bank accounts at 2 different banks. Jenkins said Spingola also wrote monthly rent checks from the bank where the Collective Impact paychecks were being deposited. Jenkins alleges that both of these individuals traveled together. They would pay for each other's flights and hotel stays. Records also show that while working at the Human Rights Commission, Davis had financial control over Collective Impact as a signatory on the nonprofit's bank account. He would sign the checks, decide where the money went. She authorized reimbursements to herself. She also authorized repayment of Human Rights Commission expenses with Collective Impact funds. You simply can't do that. Davis also had direct benefits to her son from those 2 organizations that were receiving Dreamkeeper money, including another called the Homeless Children's Network. HCN also received millions of dollars from Dreamkeeper money in a variety of different contracts. While Davis was signing certain contracts, the Homeless Children's Network paid her son $140,000 as an independent contractor. I wonder if her son is also going to be brought into this case. Okay, and I got a couple of rants. We'll read those in a second. Now, the attorney for Davis, Tony Brass, released a statement to ABC 7 Eyewitness News. He says, most important is that at its core, this is a case in which the city handpicked Dr. Davis from Collective Impact due to her experience and connections in the business of helping San Francisco's Black community. They provided her with no guidance about transitioning into government bureaucracy and asked her to develop a robust system to help those in need to advance not only individuals, but San Francisco as a city where the Black community could thrive. It was not only obvious that Dr. Davis would have conflicts of interest with Collective Impact, but was also something she informed the city attorney about. She asked for financial supervision. She asked for internal audits, and when no one responded, She actually went to the Board of Supervisors to ask for funding so that she could staff these positions. This means that she was asking for more transparency, not less. For the city to respond with a felony prosecution after 2 years is disappointing. Dr. Davis has cooperated in every way with this investigation, voluntarily giving very frank and candid interviews to city agencies. Now, the attorney for Mr. Spingola also released a written statement. James Spingola is presumed innocent under the law, and I have confidence in our justice system. Well, you're the only one. I have not seen the evidence against him, so I am not able to say more. Now, the DA for San Francisco did a presser talking about these charges and the various conflicts of interest. We don't need to read that, but it sounds to me like the DA has put together a rock-solid case right here, and these two are probably, at the minimum, going to be on the hook for a lot of money. Thank you to Will to Push Forward. Zach, suppose you could provide a musical intro for Eric Fartswell. It's on YouTube called The Most Beautiful Fart Ever. It'll make you laugh. It's a real gas. Yes, I will definitely try to find that. And I need to figure out what is going on with my browser, with Safari. It's like a whole bunch of websites are not working. It's very frustrating. But let's go ahead and find the Eric Swalwell fart. And hang on, I have to log into my account, and I don't want to dox my password and log in. So give me just a second. Oh shoot, I have to sign into this one. Okay. Okay, so we'll go to that one. Okay, so it's called The Most Beautiful Fart Ever. Believe we've played this on many occasions. That is, I don't know if this is the one you're talking about, but it's not Eric Swalwell. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but Eric Swalwell fart. All right, here is the fart.
Who were on the phone listening to the president talk about this swap of dirt for U.S. military aid.
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week was that you don't have anyone who heard the call.
I swear to God, when I saw that, when it happened, I thought that has to be an edit. There is no way that this guy would go on national news and give an interview and bust a ripper like that on national television, but he actually did. That was real. That was absolutely real. G. Fontez says latest aggregate polling for California governor's race. Steve Hilton polling at 15.6%. Chad Bianco polling at 14.6%. Ooh, Eric Swalwell is now at 14%. Katie Porter at 11.4%. Tom Steyer at 11%. Undecided at 26%. And who knows where the other 8% went. I think there's a couple of other smaller candidates that they probably just don't bother to put out there. Okay. All right. Next on the docket today is another tweet that I'm going to have to pull up in a different screen. But before we do that, I have a very brief message from our friends over on Rumble. You guys know that America is about to hit a major milestone, our 250th birthday. If you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, listen up. This is something you're going to want to hear. 250 years of this nation, freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. Right now is the perfect moment to help your children or grandchildren understand why this country matters, not just the fireworks and the hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday. It's honestly a great way to introduce your kids to how America began, who those founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for then still matter today. This guide is going to send your kids back to the moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. They knew how dangerous it was. They knew that they were risking their lives for freedom. It's going to break it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy, but it's not going to water it down or turn it into some boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and teaching them why it's worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab. The best part is it's completely free. It's a special offer. All you need to do is pay $2 for the shipping and handling. So to pick it up today, head over to freeusabirthday.com. Once again, that's freeusabirthday.com. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is there for your kids today. Because America's story matters. Make sure that the next generation knows it. Thank you very much to the good folks at Rumble. And thank you, G. Fontes, for that aggregate polling. Let me also say, I believe we ended off with Sean Joe dropping a cookie and a cookie. Good Dog dropped a can. Sean Joe dropped another cookie. Filter Dog says Dems didn't have a problem weaponizing the DOJ to go after Trump. Yes, I took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that earlier. How ironic that they have a problem with the weaponization of government. The only thing is it's not weaponization when they do it. It's only weaponization when they get caught, which is so hypocritical. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says President Trump has signed an executive order restricting the use of mail-in ballots nationwide. Great. I knew it had happened or it was scheduled to happen. That's good to know it did. Ina says, thank you, RP. Thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Sir Lurks a lot. Thank you for 2 cookies. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for the support, you guys. Thank you for being here. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. That would be awesome. Also have some good news. The United States Supreme Court has just decided against Colorado's ban on conversion therapy for children. Let's be very clear on what this was actually about. This was about the state of Colorado forbidding therapists from talking to gender-confused children and helping them realize that if they're born a boy, they're actually a boy, or if they're born a girl, they're actually a girl. That's all it was. It was merely a means of helping these kids who are confused by the sort of modern day propaganda, transgender brain worms being implanted in their minds. And the state of Colorado wanted to essentially outlaw that from happening. This was an 8-1 ruling. Once again, it's Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was the lone dissenting voice. I mean, come on, guys. Why wouldn't we want this for our kids? Stop the satanic indoctrination of our children. This is totally inappropriate. This is not the kind of stuff that we need for children, and thank God that the Supreme Court has given us this precedent now. Very, very important. All right, now, yesterday, well, I guess actually this morning, James O'Keefe had reported that there was an incident in his office yesterday where the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, a detective representative, showed up and was looking for James O'Keefe. Apparently, he was looking to serve O'Keefe some papers. Now, the sheriff was very polite. He didn't appear to know who James O'Keefe, O'Keefe Media Group, or Project Veritas was. James was not there at the time. They did get the interaction on camera. The sheriff wanted to make sure everybody was aware that this was, not some situation where James was going to be arrested or anything like that, but he couldn't say at the time exactly what it was for. Now, of course, James bristled just a little bit at the concept of the sheriff's office coming and paying him a visit, especially with all of the evidence that's being dropped about many different types of crimes related to the election and related to fraud that O'Keefe and many others have reported on over the last couple of years. James O'Keefe said that basically looks like they were coming to give him some type of legal justice when they weren't bothering to go out and deliver justice on all of the cases of fraud. Now, James was live on the air, and the sheriff came back. It turns out it was a domestic violence restraining order from Matthew Termond. Matthew Termond, if you'll remember, was the former head of Project Veritas that got James O'Keefe kicked out of the organization, essentially firing him without actually firing him. They basically kept him as an employee. They took all of his responsibility away, all of his control away, and they were attempting to just keep him in the background. So that way they could continue to get all of the donations for Project Veritas, but stop James from being able to make any decisions at the organization that he created. So he was forced to leave. It was essentially firing him without actually firing him. It's a clever trick that oftentimes you'll see in large organizations. If they know that they fire you, they're going to be responsible for perhaps unemployment, or maybe there's a severance package they're going to have to pay you. If they can just make your life so difficult so that you don't want to work there anymore, then it makes it a lot easier on the corporate overlords. That's exactly what Matthew Tierman did. Now, in addition to that, Matthew Tierman also publicly, or in private conversations that were later publicly released, talked about his hatred of James O'Keefe and how he wanted to murder him. So it's kind of hilarious that Tierman filed a domestic violence restraining order against James. There will be a court hearing tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in Miami. James will have an opportunity to present or refute his own evidence and the evidence that Tierman apparently is going to be bringing against him. I can't imagine that Matthew Tierman will be successful, but James just may be able to get a counter restraining order based on Tierman's public statements of wanting to kill him. Now, James also posted earlier today we're going to get people arrested for election crimes. Don't believe it, watch. I don't know if anything additional has been released, but yes, it would appear that there is a new video out, and he says here that California identity scam, petition fraudsters logging into online databases to supply real-time voter names for forged signatures and streamlined ballot petition payments. So this is a step above just going to the voter registration office and getting a list of names. The fact that they have access to an online database, that certainly indicates a much deeper level of sophistication. So let's take a look at the intro.
We caught the petition fraudsters on Skid Row in Los Angeles on video accessing an online database of registered voters.
This is the last name you're going to use. You're not going to use your name. I'm giving you a name to use, but you're going to use your first name.
And giving names of registered voters from that database to the homeless to impersonate those voters and signed petitions in other people's names.
He's in it. Yeah.
Committing felony election fraud and forgery, all for $3 apiece. We showed this footage to disenfranchised voters whose signatures were forged on the petition, and those voters say, throw the book at them.
Now I know not to sign any of those petitions anymore. Yeah, prosecute them, and I'll probably should be even worse if they've done worse.
Now, because you haven't registered, I need to register you so I can get paid too. I'm paying you guys, I need to get paid.
Cam Higbee and I tracked down Brenda Brown to inform her that she's been committing federal felonies and election fraud. You gave cash for a voter registration form. You know it's a federal crime, right? Who do you work for? Who's giving you the cash?
Join the good guys.
Join us. Be a hero. Blow the whistle on it, Brenda.
I'll talk to you, but I don't want to talk to them.
I'm okay.
But you come in, but not them.
Okay.
Without your thing right there.
Here you go. We turn off all recording devices as requested and go inside. I'll be right back. And using the information she provided to us, we tracked down the people that hired Brenda Brown.
Is he smoking a backwoods, or is that just a blunt? Look at that.
We turn off all recording devices as requested and go inside. I'll be right back. And using the information she provided to us, we tracked down the people that hired Brenda Brown.
If we do something wrong out there, we should be prosecuted.
Tony Moore even mentioning the database they were using, sigvalid.com.
There's a data app that they use too.
Sigvalid.com.
Sigvalid.com.
You want me to tell you what the problem is?
What is it?
We catch people all the time doing fraud. The state does not prosecute. If there's no consequences to what you're doing, it doesn't matter.
Man, he said it. He absolutely said it. Yeah, the cigar to me looked like a blunt or a backwoods. If you guys haven't seen a backwoods, it's just kind of like a crude tobacco leaf rolled cigar. You get them in like pouches. They're big with people who want to roll blunts. All right, so he's absolutely correct. fraud is very real. In California, they don't care. There are obviously a lot of loopholes that are being created in California. There is a major benefit to the ruling party in California to allow this fraud to continue. And of course, there is a major benefit to these large-scale nonprofit organizations that are using money to fund this stuff. It's highly, highly interesting that they were able to get the guy who owns the company to even mention that, yeah, we know they're doing it, but we can't stop it because the state doesn't have any reason to stop it from happening. They're the ones who are benefiting. It's also great that they were able to get this woman on the record and have her go public with the information. Even if she didn't do it on camera, she still gave them vital information. Let's watch for just a little bit longer.
Over the past few weeks, my team and I have been undercover in Los Angeles, investigating an elaborate pyramid scheme involving election fraud, ballot fraud, unregistered petition circulators, identity theft, and signature forgery, all state and federal felonies. Well, today, we take you on another level. Deeper we go. We were able to record one of these fraudsters directly in the act of obtaining a false identity for a homeless person to use on a petition, but he obtained it using a mysterious online database. The fraudulent petitioner selects Los Angeles, enters a zip code 90501, and then a generic name, Chris. It is safe to assume that there is a Chris in every zip code, so these search parameters will give him multiple Chris's in the zip code 90501 that he can get this homeless person to pose as on his petition.
Okay, I'm doing here.
Wow.
Chris. First name. I know. Don't worry about it. I'll give you a new name. This is the last name you're going to use. You're not going to use your name. I'm giving you a name to use because you don't use your first name. Okay, so the last name will be C-A-S-T-E.
Costello.
L-L-O. The address.
Chris
The
Costello.
fraudster reads off Chris Costello's address, which we are omitting from this report to protect that innocent person's privacy. You can see the URL of the website the fraudster is using, online.sigvalid.com. My team attempted to access this site, but we were met with a login page, which begs the question, how did this individual get access to that website? More on that later.
And the zip code.
Wow. Okay, so this is a full 20-minute report. I'm just going to suggest that you guys catch up with this on James's account. Let me go forward just a little bit and see if they make contact with authorities. Now, it doesn't appear that they do, but they do a longer interview with Tony Moore from One More Petition. And there they also speak with a petition circulator. Looks like they've got several people on record. So yes, just make sure that you are following so that you can keep up to date with this. Again, the only thing that we can do is expose this and continue to raise awareness about it until the point is such that the state government of California is forced to do something about it. Now, it should also be mentioned that Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney for Los Angeles, who has brought indictments against a whole host of people for a variety of different crimes since coming on to the office, he has gone out and publicly mentioned that he is now working directly with the new fraud task force. And so he says you can expect to see an explosion of indictments rather soon. I would imagine that considering this is taking place in Los Angeles County, that means that Bill Asaley is going to be the guy prosecuting these cases along with the people on his team. All right. Now, in what was probably the most shocking story that I've seen today, it appears that Kristi Noem's husband is a cross-dressing weirdo. Now, there have been a lot of rumors about Kristi Noem having an affair with Corey. Somebody else will remember his name, but I cannot remember his name right now. Corey Lewandowski. And people were kind of, they were a little judgy about it, but there was no evidence to suggest that was happening. But if Kristi Noem is in a loveless relationship with the guy who likes to dress up and wear fake boobs and go online and do recorded video chat masturbation sessions with sex workers, I can give her a pass. I can understand why she might want to do that. That is, have an affair if maybe they have some type of an arrangement or something. I don't know. I'm merely speculating right now. But this is real, guys. This is absolutely real. They've got the pictures and everything. The Daily Mail released this morning. His name is Brian Noem. I've never really seen anybody mention him before. I don't know anything about him. He is still married to Kristi Noem, and this deeply disturbing scandal for a number of different reasons is now being revealed because the pictures and the videos from his online activity, including financial transactions with these adult entertainers, have been revealed. Now, the reason it is most disturbing to me is because something like this means that Kristi Noem could have been compromised. When you have someone engaging in this type of behavior that is married to the Secretary of Homeland Security or any position she's held in either state or federal government, this is one of those things that intelligence agencies look for to compromise you and get you to do whatever they want you to do, because who would want this to come out? Nobody would want this to be revealed. Easily a way to blackmail somebody like Kristi Noem as a result. I suppose the good news is now that it's out, hopefully there's nothing else, and she, doesn't have to worry about blackmail now. So I guess Brian Noem engaged in online interactions with a number of individuals in niche adult communities, including exchanging messages, sending money, and sharing photos of himself in this drag attire. There have been hundreds of messages that were reviewed and then reviewed by the Daily Mail, but exchanged between Brian and multiple people over a period of more than a year. And it unfortunately overlapped with the time that Kristi Noem was the Secretary of Homeland Security. It includes things like explicit conversations with online performers, financial transactions totaling at a minimum $25,000 through platforms like PayPal and Cash App. There are plenty of people who make $25,000 in an entire year. If you are spending $25,000 on sex workers, either online or in person, you have a problem. Okay, you have a problem. This is not something that you should be doing with your time. Generally speaking, live and let live. I don't judge, but this is definitely one of those things that I think is a real problem. This should not even be a story that we're talking about. The other disturbing aspect is the pictures of him wearing these fake boobs and dressing up like a woman. He also made admissions to these sex workers about his personal life and his marriage. So I guess they came from WhatsApp messages and images that were sent back and forth. He has a fetish, apparently, for 3,000cc fake boobs. He has like a suit that he wears. One of the models that he was communicating with said that Brian had, or that she had described their conversations to the Daily Mail. That's a reference to custom-made XXL implants that can hold more than 3,000 cubic centimeters of saline per breast, which is a lot more than surgeons generally recommend. The sex worker said it's called bimbofication. Bimbofication, people who modify their body to look like a doll, like a Barbie doll. His kink is for huge, ridiculous boobs. Byron got in contact with a model using the pseudonym Jason Jackson. Is that a man? Jason Jackson, complimenting her amazing curves and vowing to worship her like a goddess, according to the messages. In texts and audio calls that were also recorded, the pair shared everything from mundane daily chit-chat to spicy banter about her augmented chest. The model sent an array of topless selfies and lingerie shots. Jason apparently felt relaxed enough to reciprocate with photos of himself wearing these skimpy outfits and lopsided do-it-yourself breasts. "You turn me into a girl," he said. "Should I put on leggings?" Multiple intelligence experts have cited in this report that this type of behavior presents a textbook vulnerability for blackmail, not only by our own intelligence agencies, but more importantly, foreign adversaries. Now, at the time of this activity, Kristi Noem was running the DHS, including immigration enforcement, counterterrorism coordination, critical infrastructure protection. Experts warn that any undisclosed personal vulnerabilities can be exploited by those foreign adversaries. And according to the report, Brian Noem's alleged conduct may have created exactly that kind of leverage. When confronted, Brian Noem reportedly did not deny engaging in these explicit conversations or in sharing the photos, but pushed back on claims that his actions posed a national security threat. They definitely posed a national security threat. Whether or not somebody compromised him or blackmailed Kristi Noem, the fact that something like this can be used against you is exactly why we can't allow these things to be taking place. Now, Kristi Noem's representatives have given a brief statement. She is devastated, understandably so. The family was blindsided by this. Apparently, this is not something he brought up with Kristi Noem, and they are asking for privacy and prayers at this time. That is the only thing that you can ask for. I don't know what this means for Kristi Noem's position at the Shield of the Americas. And I don't know if their marriage is going to survive. I don't know if it was even a real marriage to begin with, but I will show you guys the picture. Oh, they didn't include it. Well, the pictures are out there. If you guys want to see Brian Noem wearing fake boobs, you can find them all over Twitter. It's everywhere. All right. Let me say thank you very much to, no, I've already said thank you for that, so that's no big deal. Okay. Now, this is hilarious. Nancy Pelosi is now warning that President Trump and the Republicans might hack into voting machines to rig the 2026 midterm. Can you believe it? Once again, they are suggesting that President Trump is going to hack the midterms. Before we get into that story, I have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, it's a fact. AI is coming for many of your jobs. I know that sounds extreme to some people, but CEOs and scientists that are currently building artificial intelligence, they're the ones who are warning that AI is going to transform and even replace large parts of today's workforce. And it's probably going to happen a lot faster than most people are prepared for. So if you want to understand what's happening and how to prepare, visit drivegrowthhq.com and see what AI leaders are saying about what's coming next. It is delivered to you totally free by email. That's drivegrowthhq.com. It's a free analysis from Drive Growth HQ that examines what these AI researchers, economists, and CEOs are saying about the future of work and the growing risk of labor disruption. The report explains how AI is already reshaping industries, why experts and CEOs of major companies believe that job displacement is going to accelerate in the coming months, and most importantly, what individuals and businesses should understand and do about it right now. You can read that full report at drivegrowthhq.com because your job may be next. But the real question isn't whether AI is going to change work. It's whether you will be prepared when it does. You can also use that QR code on screen. Thank you very much to the good folks over at Rumble. All right. So why is it always projection? Either Nancy Pelosi truly believes that the Republicans are going to sweep the midterms, or perhaps they are planning some type of a trap. If the administration discovers some type of manipulation, something that would appear that a candidate has had a race stolen from them, because let's be honest, there's always going to be this type of fraud in an insecure election system. But either way, Nancy Pelosi is suggesting that Republicans are going to go into voting machines and change the vote to steal the midterm. I'll tell you how we can deal with it right now. Just get rid of electronic voting machines, and then nobody has to worry about having elections stolen. Nancy Pelosi has, of course, previously announced she's going to be retiring. She could go right now, and I don't think anybody would notice. She's been there for decades, but she sat down with MS Now for one of her final interviews. Thank the Lord. She's discussing the midterms, Joe Biden, the partial government shutdown, possible female candidates for president. From what I understand, Kamala Harris may be thinking about running for president again. If she does, thank you, Jesus, for the opportunity, because she is still a spectacularly bad candidate. And if she's the one who becomes the Democratic nominee for president in 2028, I don't see how it's going to be good for them. So she said, I always thought the American people were much more ready for Madam President than Congress was for Madam Speaker, because it is a marble ceiling. It's not a glass ceiling. It's a marble ceiling. Now, she also did take a swipe at Kamala Harris and said Hillary Clinton was the most qualified person of our generation to run for president. Our generation, like Nancy Pelosi's generation? How old is this woman? She's got to be almost 80. She turned out so many more people than who would have voted. At one point, she turned to election integrity, which is just not something I anticipated Nancy Pelosi would ever have a stomach for. She said that Trump and the Republicans may try to hack the voting machines and steal the midterms by altering the vote count. Let's go ahead and hear her prediction. Wow, can I not play this? Oh, I can't play it because it's on Twitter. How annoying. I'm going to have to... I got a real problem with my computer. I don't know what the deal is.
Trisha Heaton looks great at 67. Here is her #1.
Oh, sweet. I can skip. Okay. Let's see. How many martinis do you think Nancy Pelosi has had by the time this interview took place? I'm just going to give you guys that question. You throw your predictions into the chat, and then after we're done watching this less than 1 minute video, we'll see who is closest.
We always have concerns, but with this president and these Republicans who have no commitment to the rule of law and doing things the appropriate way.
Oh my God, she sounds more sober than I think I've ever heard her.
We're ready. We have three purposes now. One is to win the midterms. Two is to make sure the elections are safe. And three, to tell people what we will do when we win. And that is the mission. There's so many things that you can do to protect the election, and they are being done, whether it's litigation or legislation or just mobilization, communication, all of that. But in addition to that, we have to be on guard as to what they may try to do to the technology. They may try to creep into the technology and create a false count.
How do you guard against that?
That's a challenge.
Well, that's a question we've been grappling with for a very long time. So, again, highly ironic that Nancy Pelosi is suggesting that Donald Trump is going to be the one to steal the election. Obviously, that's not going to happen. If or when Republican candidates win in the next election, hopefully it's going to be in a very different scenario. Now, of course, I'm going to have to open up our Opera again to play this tweet. All right, now this is an update on the USAID Ukraine DNC money funneling operation. We've gotten a little bit more information, and it's interesting because John Solomon directly name drops Samantha Power. Samantha Power was, at the time, USAID and Ukraine were working to funnel that U.S. government taxpayer money from this clean energy project back into the accounts of the DNC for Joe Biden's campaign or whomever would eventually be the candidate. Samantha Power was running USAID. I believe that President Trump and his administration were aware of this at the moment they came in. And I think that it's one of the reasons why USAID was so swiftly dealt with. USAID had always been a slush fund vehicle for the Central Intelligence Agency. And Samantha Power made a number of trips to Ukraine right around the time that these communications were intercepted by the National Security Agency. Samantha Power goes back through a number of Democrat administrations. Obama, she worked with Hillary directly. She was an ally of Joe Biden, of course, because she was running USAID. But here, in this first clip, Ukrainian officials discussing the funneling of this money back into President Biden's campaign. They knew that what they were doing was illegal. They knew that eventually it would be caught. However, they were so confident in their ability to successfully defraud this money that by the time anyone noticed, they would simply say that, well, the money had been spent. You won't be able to claw it back at that point. And if successful, obviously, they would be able to get their candidate back into office, or at least somebody who was sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause. Let's take a listen.
This incredible story about NSA intercepts showing Ukrainian officials basically discussing a plot to funnel back millions in American aid money back to the Biden 2024 campaign through, none other than USAID. I mean, really, I guess it shouldn't surprise us anymore, but it should shock us. Can you walk us through it and, what else we need to know?
Yeah, let's give everybody a little quick history lesson because the context of this is important. In 2016, we know that the Ukrainian embassy in the United States was advocating for Hillary Clinton's campaign. The ambassador here even wrote an op-ed doing so. In the period before that, they were enriching the Ukrainian gas company. Burisma was enriching Joe Biden's son, Hunter. So Ukrainians generally have had a leftward lurch.
It's also come out that the FBI paid millions of dollars to social media companies to successfully get them to put a stamp on the Hunter Biden Burisma laptop story. The federal government of the United States didn't simply just put pressure on these social media companies. They gave them direct financial remuneration to ensure that the story would not go any farther. That was, of course, right around the time that I lost my original YouTube account, and my Twitter account was subsequently deleted as well, both of which I have back now.
In their support in the American political system, sometimes very overtly, like putting Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma, or their ambassador writing an op-ed saying they would prefer Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump in 2016. Then we get through the whole impeachment scandal. We're told, don't believe any of that Ukrainian liberal preference. Turns out it was all true. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. Hunter Biden and the Democratic Party were deeply entangled with the Ukrainian government.
You know what else is interesting? Samantha Power's husband is a man by the name of Cass Sunstein. I've done a couple of Sunstein-specific programs. I believe that Brad and I did one on Altered State, and then here on my channel several years ago, I talked about a plan that Cass Sunstein had to foment conspiracy theories, to essentially interject himself or the administration, the intelligence community, into the truth movement so that they could obfuscate and confuse people. Very ingenious plan.
Ukrainian businesses. And we lived through that. Joe Biden's in the White House. And in 2022 and early 23, his fundraising is lagging, even though he's the incumbent. He's got the problems with the Afghanistan withdrawal, questions about his mental acuity, enormous unpopularity, particularly when it comes to an open border. And so it's at that moment when NSA guys with headphones on are listening, and they intercept a series of conversations. Some of these are probably on email. And it's a senior government official in the Ukrainian government of President Zelensky talking about a plot that has been discussed with USAID workers, our foreign aid agency workers in Kiev, to give a $200-300 million clean energy grant to Ukraine. Now, Ukraine's in the middle of a war with Russia. The last thing they're going to be building is some clean energy project. They're trying to...
They're not building solar panels when you're getting bombed every day. It's probably...
No. Now, this is where he directly name drops Samantha Power.
I mean,
sure.
This is sophisticated stuff.
It is.
Who on the American side, was coordinating that? Do we know that yet? I mean, how deep does this go? Because I can't imagine, this isn't one guy with, with an email. I mean, this has got to be a team of people. This is a, multi-$100 million transaction through complicated processes. And again, how do we trace that money?
Yeah, so what we do know is that the NSA identified the senior Ukrainian government officials who were having this conversation. And I believe they have some of their emails in. So we know who in Ukraine was involved. The intercepts don't mention the USAID workers by name. They just simply mention that they're working for USAID in Kiev. That's a small group of people. And that's why the calling of the USAID email should help people find that pretty quickly. Who was in touch with those government officials? Who was talking about a clean energy grant in the middle of a war with Russia? It should be easy to narrow down. And
it should definitely be very easy. Now, I would suggest one of the reasons you probably don't have anyone from USAID specifically named is because, of course, it was 2022. It was the Biden NSA, and anything related to a member of the deep state or Biden's own administration that was handling a transaction such as this, they would have had their information covered up. But as John Solomon says, it's a very small group of people that would have been working in Ukraine at that time. The presence of Samantha Power at USAID running the whole operation and then also making those direct visits to Ukraine on multiple occasions. She tweeted about it. Her account is no longer there. She deleted it. But of course, people have archived everything. I would say that it's nigh on impossible that Samantha Power wasn't directly involved in this scheme.
my understanding is they've made some progress just in the time since I broke the story last week. That's a good sign. You're right, it's very sophisticated. In fact, the NSA intercept report, which is a summary of the intercepts, said that this was designed to be so complicated it would be hard to figure out after the fact, laundering it multiple times until you eventually break off the money and you send it to the DNC and Joe Biden. So it is. At the time this was going on, a very famous person was running USAID. The former UN ambassador was now at USAID, Samantha Power, someone very close to Obama, someone very close to Hillary Clinton, someone very close to Joe Biden. So at the top of USAID is a very political Biden, Clinton era, Obama era person. That doesn't mean she's involved yet, but certainly you'd be looking at that agency from the top down to see who knew what when.
She's at a minimum somebody who needs to be questioned about the very financial transaction that they've exposed. Now, we've also gotten a new memo that was released by the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it proves that the actions of Jack Smith were done with the full approval of then Attorney General Merrick Garland. Not only that, but Merrick Garland was fully aware of the illegal nature of it, how improper Jack Smith's methods were, and he fully signed off on it. A lot of people have wondered, did Jack Smith act as a rogue operator? Did Jack Smith do it with the full approval of the Department of Justice? Of course, I've always thought that Merrick Garland and others inside the Biden camp were fully aware of this. So we are now getting to the full scope of the Justice Department and Jack Smith's dragnet. They were looking to criminally prosecute Donald Trump, and they were looking to do it with whatever dirty tools they had at their disposal. This new evidence released in the past week from the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley shows that Smith's team had prepared a briefing memo in January of 2023. Of course, this is in the height of the presidential election. And it alerted Merrick Garland directly that prosecutors were obtaining communications of as many as a dozen of President Trump's private lawyers and allies in Congress. They were piercing the veil of congressional and legal confidentiality. The memo made it clear that those gatherings were being done despite the legitimate claims that both lawyers for President Trump and members of Congress would be afforded attorney-client privilege and speech and debate clause privileges. The AG briefing document that was prepared by Jack Smith's office on January 13th of 2023 provided Merrick Garland and whomever else in his office read it with a series of deep insights into the anti-Trump special counsel's ongoing inquiry. And it also laid out exactly what their plans were for the future. Those documents were released by Chuck Grassley in coordination with GOP Senator Ron Johnson. He's the chairman of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. Also, Ted Cruz, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee on Federal Courts, was involved in the release. The knowledge that Merrick Garland had of Jack Smith's inquiry is not surprising. I always expected that he knew exactly what was going on. There's a reason Jack Smith was chosen, because he had a history of playing dirty. And, of course, Merrick Garland, working with his deep state confidants, he needed to know that somebody was going to take down Donald Trump. Little did they know that he would be so difficult to remove. Recent evidence that we've received also shows that Garland, Lisa Monaco, who was then Deputy Attorney General, and the current, at that time, Director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, all signed off on the launch of Arctic Frost, which was the inquiry into President Trump after January 6th. Garland also said that he personally approved the decision to seek that search warrant for the raid on Mar-a-Lago in 2022. And the Biden White House has also been directly linked to the classified documents investigation into President Trump, despite the fact that they've denied it at every turn. And then, of course, you have all of the communications with a variety of different prosecutors all around the country. It was a whole of government effort. I don't know that anybody is going to be blameless in this entire thing. Now, Jack Smith is still not talking. He decided not to comment on this story. A question or series of questions was sent to his attorneys that have represented him. And Garland also is not commenting, even though his law firm, Arnold and Porter, were also contacted. He actually went to work there in 2025. Now, the newly released Smith team briefing document from 2023 included information about tolls for member of Congress and said that some members of Congress had communicated with President Trump and his surrogates in the lead up to January 6th. It's unlikely that many of those members will cooperate with our investigation, and they likely have a valid speech or debate privilege immunizing them from compelled testimony, the document said. In the coming week or so, we intend to issue subpoenas for the toll records of certain members of Congress for the period between 2020 election and January 20th to investigate those communications and to establish logical evidentiary inferences regarding Trump and his surrogates' actions and intent. Now, we've learned about those subpoenas not that long ago. It's interesting to me that finally Congress is being pursued by a corrupt arm of the U.S. government, and so now they really care about it. But those toll records are the detailed logs of communications that includes phone calls and text messages as well. Last year, when we first learned that the FBI had snooped in on the phone records of Republican members of Congress during that investigation, that put some pressure and scrutiny onto Chris Wray, of course, Jack Smith as well. Smith and the FBI reportedly collected those private phone records of 8 Republican senators and 1 GOP House member. We've also got the unearthed FBI record from 2023 indicating that investigators at the Bureau had prior conducted preliminary toll analysis on limited toll records tied to phone calls related to GOP Senators Johnson, Graham, Bill Hagerty, Josh Hawley, Dan Sullivan, Tommy Tuberville, Cynthia Loomis, Marsha Blackburn, and Mike Kelly. Now, the team for Jack Smith said they had some upcoming notable meetings, including one with the Biden Solicitor General. What they were attempting to do was find a legal framework to break through the former Trump White House's executive privilege assertions. The briefing memo also said that the team was committed to communication, consult with the Solicitor General on the important precedent-setting issues that we face in areas of executive privilege, speech or debate, and the scope and application of the relevant statutes we are considering charging. The newly released briefing notes also said that potential litigation included omnibus motion to compel executive privilege. And the team for Jack Smith said that through the Biden DOJ's Office of the Deputy Attorney General, which was Lisa Monaco, it will request that the Biden White House agree not to assert as they have done with the other witnesses. And that's exactly what Biden's White House did. Smith's team also told Garland that his team had these notable meetings, and they included one with Judge Beryl Howell, who we have spoken about on numerous occasions. She, of course, is an appointee of Barack Hussein Obama. At that time, she was chief judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. She and, of course, Judge Jeb Boasberg both held private meetings with Jack Smith and his team, seeking to find whatever they could to pierce through President Trump and his confidants' legal rights. The discussion with Beryl Howell reportedly included discussing the pace over the last month. How fast is this investigation plugging along? How quickly can we get President Trump off the campaign trail and put him in prison? And Smith's team wrote that she liked our approach of pursuing the executive privilege litigation in an omnibus fashion. That private meeting and the content of that meeting demonstrates that Beryl Howell and Boasberg were anything but impartial viewers of the situation. They were directly involved in the plot to destroy President Trump and the people who were dedicated to him. Now, this newly released document also shows that the team for Jack Smith was set to meet with Boasberg, also an Obama appointee, and the briefing for Garland and his office discussed the use of the written report by the then Democrat-led January 6th committee. They were also directly collaborating with them. Leadership team fully read and reviewed. Last weekend, we went over it page by page and incorporated it into our investigative plan. We have a methodical process for logging all information contained in that report. We will leverage this to avoid needless interviews and focus the interviews we perform on underdeveloped topics. Special counsel also signaled that they might subpoena Fox News. We understand it from witnesses that Trump spent the afternoon of January 6th in the White House watching Fox News, which would have placed him on notice of the violence at the Capitol. We also understand from publicly available information that Trump is a regular viewer of Fox News. To investigate his knowledge and intent, we intend to publicly obtain broadcast Fox coverage from January 6th and many of the days between the 2020 election and January 6th. Smith also wrote in the memo, I will contact Fox and see if they will consent to a subpoena. If they will, I will authorize the subpoena. They also said that the Attorney General's office said that staffing at the FBI was going well, meaning that they were bulking up staffing to have people dedicated to this investigation into President Trump. Smith's team also wrote that there were face-to-name meetings with FBI HQ that were coming up in the near future. A meeting between FBI Deputy Director and the FBI General Counsel having happened earlier in January of 2023. A meeting with Christopher Wray, as well as Dave Sundberg, who was then assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. Most importantly, I also met with actual case teams. We did an all-hands meeting over the entire investigative team. Overall, the FBI is being very responsible. Hopefully, all of these people have been fired at this point. If they haven't yet, I don't know what the deal is. And of course, as we all know, the FBI raided President Trump's home in August of 2022. Garland provided the authorization. The Attorney General had handpicked Jack Smith in November of 2022 to lead these criminal investigations. And the appointment order for Smith in November said the special counsel was authorized to conduct the ongoing investigation into whether any person or entity violated the law in connection with efforts to interfere with the lawful transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election or the certification of the Electoral College vote held on or about January 6th. And Smith was basically given carte blanche to investigate in whatever way he saw fit. The important thing here is that the full scope of these people's involvement is coming out. I don't know that Merrick Garland is going to be eligible for any criminal charges. Do you guys remember if Merrick Garland was given a pardon on anything? I don't think he was. But I need to check. No, he was not pardoned. Okay. All right. Now, in addition, we have kind of a crazy story, but also not necessarily. I saw a lot of people talking about this yesterday. I discussed it with John a little bit last night. You guys know how I feel about this case, the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the sort of bungled nature of the investigation. I don't believe that we have much information about what truly happened to Charlie. I don't necessarily believe that Tyler Robinson is the man or only man responsible for Charlie's assassination. That entire conversation we've gone through and I've done many different shows on. We're talking about one specific thing here, and that is that the ATF is physically unable to identify the bullet taken from Charlie Kirk's body with Tyler Robinson's rifle. And there's a very specific reason why, but it calls even more questions that we've had in the past about this event. So this is coming from a court filing that was put to the record by Tyler Robinson's own defense team. And the crux of the matter is, and why can't I go into reader mode? What the hell? Wow, that's annoying. Okay, well, anyways, Tyler Robinson's defense team entered this briefing revealing that the ATF has been unable to identify the bullet that was recovered from Charlie's autopsy. Now, the reason they can't identify the bullet is because the bullet was in fragments. Now, when you are matching a bullet with the gun, you're going to be looking at the rifling marks on the bullet itself as it travels through the barrel. They would take the gun, they would do a comparison on another bullet, they would look, and it's essentially like a forensic match. But when the bullet's in pieces, because it fragged, you're not going to be able to do that. So quite literally, it doesn't mean that the bullet didn't come from that gun. However, it also doesn't mean the bullet did not come from that gun. It's not the job of the defense team to prove that Tyler Robinson didn't kill Charlie Kirk. It's the job of the prosecution to prove that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. All the defense team needs to do is impress a reasonable doubt on the minds of the jury. And that is exactly what they are doing with this filing. The defense team apparently seems primed to call as a witness the forensic investigator for the ATF because all they need to do is ask the question, can you conclusively match the bullet taken from Mr. Kirk's body with the rifle you claim it was shot from? And the answer is no. And that's all that they're going to ask, likely. I'm sure that the prosecution will probably go into a deeper questioning on it. But that's really the only thing that the defense needs do. And by doing so, they could theoretically create enough reasonable doubt. But the question it raises is the question, once again, about whether or not this is even a bullet from a 30-06. I many times showed a number of ballistics tests done on carcasses of animals. A cow is going to have much thicker bones than a human being. A pig carcass also may, depending on where it's at, have much thicker and stronger bones. But a 30-06, and I saw people asking about this last night. What's the difference between like a 5.56 and a 7.62 and a 30-06? It's the size and weight of the projectile, and it's also the amount of explosive energy that's contained in the shell itself. And a 30-06 is going to be heavier. It's also going to have a lot more powder. And it's unusual for a 30-06 bullet to not go directly through the body of whatever it's being shot at. That's one of the reasons why it's so good for hunting, because it's got, steady trajectory. It's not going to wobble too much. It's not going to be affected by wind as much. It's also got a lot of power, so it's just going to boom, go through and kill. But the way that this bullet behaved in Charlie's body is totally incongruous with what you would normally expect from a 30-06 round. For it to frag in that way, it's just not something you would expect. Now, I haven't seen anything from the prosecution to explain that. Of course, the reasoning that we got from a so-called TPUSA insider was that Charlie's bones were just so dense, because I guess he drank a lot of milk and he was very healthy, that the bullet exploded on impact with his spine. That's simply just not plausible to me. I've never seen that. I haven't seen anybody be able to replicate that. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen, but I just feel that there isn't enough convincing evidence to suggest that. Now, maybe this was a special round. Maybe this was a special 30-06 round that was designed to frag on impact. Because they do make those, at least for handguns. I got plenty of hollow point rounds that will open up. There are also rounds that are designed to break apart when they get inside somebody. I've seen special bullets that have actually explosive charges in them so that when they hit, they actually explode. There's a whole bunch of questions, and the only way we're going to find out anything additional is through the actual trial of Tyler Robinson. Makes sense to me, too. Says, was this bullet analysis done by the same guy that did Epstein's autopsy? No, it was done by an employee of the ATF. And the guy who did Epstein's autopsy Well, I mean, it depends on which autopsy you're asking about. I don't know that the New York medical examiner, I don't know his name, but Dr. Michael Baden is the guy who did the better autopsy, in my opinion, and said, that you don't have a breakage of the hyoid bones in cases of manual strangulation through hanging. You only get that through manual asphyxiation by an individual. So his attorneys are undoubtedly going to argue that because the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms cannot conclusively identify this bullet as having come from Tyler Robinson's rifle, that the jury must consider that as reasonable doubt as to whether or not he actually committed the crime. Now, the attorneys for Tyler Robinson have revealed that they plan to call the ATF and most likely a number of other witnesses that are working for the prosecution to the stand. And state prosecutors also intend in response to call Tyler Robinson's parents, because if I'm not mistaken, Robinson's parents gave statements that Tyler Robinson actually confessed to them that he was the person who pulled the trigger. And then, of course, you have all of the messages, even as messy and as stilted, as unrealistic as they actually were. There is apparently 600,000 some odd files that prosecutors have provided to the defense for review. All of this evidence discovery that is likely going to be used at trial. So it's a very, very windy and troublesome situation. And I think the sooner that we can get some more information and answers, the sooner better off everything is going to be. What's also even stranger about this case is that the day they admit this, or the day that this comes out, the sheriff who handled the surrender of Charlie Kirk abruptly resigned. This guy is the person that Tyler Robinson's father contacted and took him in to surrender to. Sheriff Nate Brooksby has been on the job for more than 3 decades. He's been a sheriff for a long, long time. Well, I'm sorry. He's been in law enforcement for over 3 decades. I can't say that he's actually been the sheriff all that time. But it's an unusual decision for him to make in the midst of this case continuing on, and especially on the day that this announcement is made. Washington County, they said, you did a great job, Brooksby. We're going to be sad to see you go. Brooksby met the county commissioner on Friday to discuss vague complaints about office operations, and then hours later he resigned. So I don't know. It sounds like there may be some other problems happening in the office. It could be that he's resigning to get ahead of any other potential looming scandal that may be coming out. And I would hope that Mr. Brooksby would be called as a witness in this case as it comes to trial. Now, he worked with a retired deputy in the suspect's family to arrange the surrender. Allegedly, Tyler Robinson told Brooksby that he was fearful of being shot when he turned himself in. And the arrangement for the surrender, many people questioned why it happened in the way that it did. It was kind of unusual. Now, this motion being revealed on the same day that his retirement is announced, there's a lot of people asking questions. It's a real head scratcher. And let me go back to Opera. I think we're just going to have to stop using Safari. Okay. From one conspiracy to another. John Kiriakou is the former CIA officer who exposed the George W. Bush administration's use of torture to question defendants at Guantanamo Bay. This is where we learned about waterboarding. He ended up going to prison. I can't remember I think he might have actually went to prison under the Obama administration, now that I think about it. But let's go ahead and take a listen to this. He's talking about his personal knowledge of JFK Truth. He apparently has a friendship with somebody who is directly involved with some of these files having been held back. Let's take a listen.
Say about this.
No, Leo's mom, that's the thing. There is no indication specifically that he had plans to retire. The only thing that I was able to find out is that there was some conversation that happened with an entity in county government that had power over him regarding some type of discontent in the office. And then he very quickly after that retired. I'm definitely not saying that he retired because this information came out, although a lot of people are suggesting that. It appears that the announcement of his leaving the office of the sheriff was actually decided on Friday of last week. So it does not look as if he had plans prior to retire. If anything, I think that it's possible that he may be corrupt as a sheriff. There may be problems in the Washington County Sheriff's Department, and he may be looking to get out before something bad happens, or perhaps he gets exposed for something. But again, it's all speculation.
When I got out of prison, I struck up a friendship with Oliver Stone. He bought the rights to he bought the rights to one chapter of my first book, and we sold a show idea together to the History Channel that they never made. But we became friendly and remained friendly. And he put me on the spot one day. I was in his office and he said to me, you're not one of those guys that doesn't believe that the CIA killed Kennedy, are you? And I said, I think there were probably elements of the CIA that were involved in killing Kennedy, but in terms of being a CIA operation to kill Kennedy, no, I've never believed that. He said, you're so full of shit.
Now, of course, I think that John Kiriakou would have this opinion. Although it is true, there is, to a great degree, compartmentalization within the intelligence community and within the various agencies themselves. I think that there was probably a fairly well understood plan within the CIA and, of course, other government agencies. I definitely think Mossad had a hand to play in it, and, of course, the mob. There was definitely knowledge that Kennedy was to be assassinated.
And I said, no, I genuinely, I don't believe that the CIA killed Kennedy. And he said, who do you think killed Kennedy? I said, it was probably George Ioannidis, who was kind of a rogue CIA officer stationed in Miami. He was very close to the Cubans. And I think that
John Kiriakou is a former CIA agent who went to prison for blowing the whistle on U.S. government use of waterboarding and torture on detainees at Guantanamo Bay.
We probably should take a closer look at him. But I said at the same time, I don't think we've really gotten to the bottom of where the mob was on all this.
Now, when people say the mob, they automatically think Italian mob. Of course, the mafia, the Cosa Nostra, that's one element of the mob. But I don't know that everybody really thinks about the presence of the Jewish mafia. Arnold Rothstein, not Lucky Luciano, but he worked directly with him. But Arnold Rothstein was a very powerful Jewish mafia boss, and there were plenty of Jewish elements within the mafia that had their own crews in the same way that the Italians did. And for some reason, that gets glossed over a lot.
And I said, we hear these stories about Carlos Marcello. We hear stories about Santo Trafficante and the things that they said in the immediate aftermath, like we finally got him, and then the ties between Chicago and Jack Ruby. I said, I just don't think that's ever been fully investigated. He got genuinely angry with me that I didn't just agree with him. Yes, the CIA killed Kennedy. Well, I later struck up a friendly acquaintanceship. We're not friends, but a friendly acquaintanceship with Bobby Kennedy Jr. And he and I started talking about this one time. And he said something that I told him in response. I said, this is historical. You should write this down because I think the American people need to hear your recollections. He said, on the day that his uncle was killed, November 22nd, 1963, his mom picked him up at school early. It was like 2:30. It was minutes after the assassination. And they drove back to their home in McLean, Virginia. It was called Hickory Hill. It was a glorious, 40-acre spread with a mansion on the top of the hill. And when they pulled into the driveway, his dad was standing there talking to John McCone. John McCone was the director of the CIA. The Kennedys and the McCones were very, very close. They were both devoutly Catholic. And then 6 months earlier, Mrs. McCone died of breast cancer. And the Kennedys were genuinely worried that John McCone might do something to harm himself. And so they had him over to dinner 7 nights a week just to keep an eye on him. And then after dinner, he and Bobby Kennedy Sr. would go swimming together. So Bobby Jr. and his mom pull into the driveway. He gets out of the car. He's walking past his dad and he's looking at his dad. And he hears his dad say to McCone, "Tell me your people didn't do this." And McCone says, "I don't know who did it." He didn't say, "Wow, of course my people didn't do it. Why would you even ask such a thing like that?" He said, "I don't know who did it."
Because there was a lot of well-understood tension between John F. Kennedy and the Central Intelligence Agency. There's a reason why he threatened to smash the CIA into a million pieces.
So he said he always believed it was the CIA. I always believed it was elements of the CIA. But I'm coming up to my most important point. So I have a friend who is close to the president, and I said to him at the time that the documents were released, about a year ago, I said, thank God that the president finally released the remaining documents. And he said, no, he didn't. I said, yeah, he did. He was compelled by law. Congress passed a law twice compelling the president to release all documents related to the Kennedy assassination. He said, there are 10,000 documents that are never going to be released. And I said, why? Wow. And he said, because every single one of them points directly at Israel. And I said, oh man, that's not one that I was thinking of.
Man, how could you not? How could you not? Understanding the tension that existed between Kennedy and Israel as well. You know, there were a number of different groups, organizations, individuals that were involved in the conspiracy to kill President Kennedy. And as we've shown, I think that there is a highly compelling case for elements of the Israeli deep state to have taken part in it in the same way as the mafia or the Central Intelligence Agency here. And it's not anti-Semitic to bring it up. So for anybody out there who might think to jump down my throat, as was jumped down the other day when I mentioned something, this is not about protecting anybody's feelings. This is about exposing crime, corruption, and the deep state criminal network that has subjugated humanity, stripped away sovereignty, and sought to destroy every last shred of goodness and decency in humanity in the interest of their own power grab and narcissistic leanings. G. Fontez says, I know top Italian mafioso Meyer Lansky's juice mob counterparts had every desire to have both JFK's dead and 2 in the back of the head as their style. CIA puts 1 in the front. Yeah, there were, tons of well-known Jewish mobsters, and I couldn't remember anymore besides Meyer Lansky, but Mickey Cohen, Meyer Lansky, Harry Rosen, Irving Cohen, Benny Siegel, Louis Buckhalter, Abe Reles, Dutch Schultz, Arnold Rothstein, Meyer Lansky, again, Bugsy Siegel. So yeah, I mean, there's tons of them. And simply noticing something is not a racist or anti-Semitic trope. But that was my point the other day. When people will accuse you of being one of those things because you notice something that somebody from their tribe did. I don't care what people's background is. What I care is about getting justice for those who have lost their lives and those who have been criminally victimized. Now, before we read the final information from the chats, let me just bring up one more message from our friends over on Rumble. You guys, they can cancel your accounts, they can freeze your cards, they can decide what you're allowed to say, who you're allowed to support, because big banks and financial institutions have got total control over you and your finances, and they use it. And this is why financial independence matters now more than ever. So introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet built for real freedom, because with Rumble Wallet, you control your own money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin all in one secure place without permission or middlemen or cancel buttons. And when you want to support creators that you actually believe in, you can use that Rumble Wallet app to directly tip those creators securely, instantly, and without interference. It's not a credit line that they can shut off. It is your wallet. It's permanent to protect for the future or your family, because when the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. And Rumble Wallet is not about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download the Rumble Wallet now and step away from big banks for good and get true ownership, true protection, and true financial freedom. You can go to wallet.rumble.com or use that QR code that you see on screen. Of course, if you want to support the show and you don't want to use any type of crypto, you can go through Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/redpill78. You can also use Cash App. The name on Cash App is $Zak Paine, ZakPaine. And you can also, of course, use my website, redpill78news.com. I don't get notifications with that one, but of course, I will appreciate the support all the same. Everything that we've spoken about is listed in the description of this video. And the final thank yous that I need to give over here on Pilled are to Seanjo for 2 cookies, Sir Lurks a lot for a cookie, Seanjo and Sir Lurks a lot for another cookie and another cookie. Filter Dog says, did John get mad when you mentioned Pilled? Didn't even stream Baseless Conspiracies on Pilled. I don't think that he got mad. I don't know what's up with Pilled, because Brad was handling all of the stuff on Pilled, and I didn't even know that we weren't streaming on Pilled until I saw it last night while we were live. Seanjo, thank you for the cookie. And let's see. Makes sense to me, too. I did that one. Yes, G. Fontes says Cass Sunstein was Obama's anti-capitalist regulatory czar, crippled our economy trying to recover, and the great wealth transfer of 2008. Yes, absolutely. Cass Sunstein and Samantha Power are 2 evil, evil individuals. And I believe that is it. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for being here. Good luck. God bless. And I will see you on the next one. Peace. G. Fontes says the mention of the Italian Mafia and Juice's Murder Incorporated was out of respect for their abilities and genius that was unfortunately investigated heavily by our government specifically so they could copy them. Brilliant. And thank you to the Kenzie fam. Keep rumbling like a rock star. Sorry, no Rumble Wallet. It's been acting up lately. That's fine, my friend. Thank you for the support. I appreciate you guys. And now I'm not sure if I had my mic unmuted when I said thank you to the Kenzie fam, but thank you, and thank you for the support. I'm glad you appreciate it, Kelvin, because it's who I am, and some people don't like it, but my God, these subjects that we talk about sometimes can be so very dark. I can't put myself into a headspace like that and not try to find some cosmic humor in all of it. Oh, I almost forgot to pass out the gold pills over on Pilled. Hopefully you guys are still in the chat. Pills have been released. Thank you, Will. I appreciate you, buddy. And Sir Lurks-a-Lot, thank you for the 1,104 gold pills.